Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei was the Knight of Rias Gremory. Now before starting, please give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's—
As he slowly opened his eyes, 16-year-old Hayao Issei released a yawn before putting his 2 feet on the floor, eyes glancing around his room which didn't have much furniture other than a bookcase, a study table, a wardrobe and his bed. Overall, the room lacked most of the common things for teenagers his age, but for Issei Hayao, it was enough. Standing up, the boy slowly made his way to his bathroom. His foot accidentally stepped on a piece of paper, but he ignored it in favor of finishing morning activities. That paper was just a result of a checkup Issei took a few years back, but he still kept it and took it out every night to look at the piece of paper, to remember the day he lost one of the most important things of his life: his sense of hearing. There was an accident 10 years ago when he was still a little boy. Issei didn't remember anything about that accident, but it left some really horrible scars on his right arm and right shoulders, and bad enough to cause him mentally damage, taking away his ability to freely interact with others as well as his sense of hearing, and soon, a couple of years later, he became mute as well. It was only natural that when you weren't able to hear what you say, you would become unsure and soon you would lose the ability to speak too. Not many deaf people could talk with others, and sadly, Issei fell into that category. The only people that he was more or less comfortable around were his parent, while the rest of the world was something unfamiliar to Issei now. Unsociable would be the right word to describe his condition. Even if Issei was deaf and everyone at schools was very kind to him, his lack of courage to make friends and interact with others made him a loner all the time. Putting on his uniform, which consisted of a black blazer with white accents over a white, long-sleeved button-down shirt with vertical linings, a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants and brown dress shoes, Issei threw his bag onto his right shoulder before looking at himself in the mirror. Today was the first day of his second year at Kyo Academy, and Issei didn't think that he would be able to make most out of it like last year. After everyone, especially the girl, found out that he was mute, they tried everything they could to help him and befriend with the poor boy, but no matter how much they tried, Issei wasn't mentally strong enough to make friends just yet, intent to avoid any kind of sociable activities. Leaving his room, Issei headed down to the kitchen where his mother was waiting for him. His father probably finished his own breakfast and went to work. "Here you go," his mother said, not that he could hear it, but after she put his dishes onto the table, she made some sign language with her hands telling him that he could enjoy his breakfast. Issei put his hand to his chin before bringing it away, making a sign of thank you to his mother with a smile on his face. Both of his parents learned sign language about the same time with Issei, in order to interact with their son. They just hoped that Issei could make some friends at school, because they knew that their love alone couldn't help him get through his unsociable sickness. "Do you need me to come to school with you today, Ais-chan?" Midori Hayao asked while moving her hands in the air. She, along with her husband, was professional in sign language now, so she could communicate very easy with her son. "I will be fine, Mom." Issei shook his head and rapidly answered his mother before doing a thank you gesture once again. "Okay then." The brown-haired woman smiled before dashing away to prepare a cup of fruit juice for her son as he was slowly eating his dinner. It didn't take long for him to finish his breakfast and left for Kyo Academy on his bike. Kyo Academy used to be an all-girls school, but a couple of years ago it became a co-ed school and allowed male students to sign their name in. It was one of the best schools in Japan, located at the downtown of Kyo Town. The academy itself, rather than being a school for one certain level of education, it instead housed all grades from first university, separated by elementary, junior high, senior high, and college divisions. As long as students was able to maintain a respectful grade average, they would never get themselves in trouble, something that Issei could live with and easily avoid with his more than good mark. Eyes. Though he couldn't hear their voice, Issei could see a group of Kyo schoolgirls wave their hands while smiling warmly at him from the other side of the street. Issei could only smile nervously at them before increasing his footsteps toward school. He got used to all those attentions. Everyone, especially the girls at Kyo Academy, ever since they heard about his condition and the traumatic accident he went through when he was younger. From what he knew about everyone's point of view about him from his parent, the girls viewed him as a poor little thing that needed protection and help, while the boys, most of the time, considered him a possible threat because of the attention he received from the opposite sex. But after a while they all came to feel sad for him and tried to help Issei in everything they could. Issei only hoped that he was brave enough to return their kindness, but after that accident, he no longer yearning for friends. He always wondered what happened that day. All he knew was that the accident was bad enough to cause him both physically and mentally accident. The loss of his sense of hearing could be shoved by sign language, body language, especially with hands, but the scars on his right arm and shoulder would forever there and arched painfully every night. "Oi Hayao." Someone poked him on his shoulder, calling for his attention. The brunette turned around and saw Matsuda, with Madohama standing next to him. These two were the infamous pervert duo with their respective hero nicknames at Kyo Academy, and also girls' worst enemies. They were guys who tried to befriend with Issei only because he got unwanted popularity with girls, which disgusted others, but Issei paid no mind to it. It wasn't like he could protest when he wasn't able to speak with them anyway. Issei took out a small board and a pen from his bag. Since Madohama and Matsuda never cared to learn the basic gestures and sign language to communicate with him, he couldn't use sign language. Issei's family never had enough money to buy him a cell phone with a speaker, something that could help him speak out his thoughts by typing the words into it, so Issei had to do it the more traditional way. Though the girl said it was really cute of him for doing so. "Hey guys," he wrote on the board and turned it around to show them. Yeah, Madohama snorted before pushing the board out of the way and brought up a DVD box, featured pervert's biggest porno idol Momo Mamazono. This wasn't the first time the pervert duo showed Issei these kinds of thing, as they claimed stuffs like this would help Issei improve his social skills. Check this out. I got the new episode of Kamen Rider Pinky right here, you want to watch it with us? I don't know what you are saying, sorry ... but see you later in class. He gave Madohama the board with a nervous smile before using the sleeve of his blazer to clean it and turned around, about to leave. Oi, don't. Matsuda was about to reach his hand out to grab Issei when suddenly a girl with dark brown hair tied into a ponytail, wielding a bakken in her hands, appeared and slashed the wooden sword down to the pervert Baldy's arm rather violently, making him yelp out in pain, and took it back. Oi, get your filthy hand away from Eyes. Murayama, the leader of the kendo club, said loudly, pointing her bakken at him, with the rest of the kendo club standing by her side, with kendo stick in their hands, a rather pissed off expression on their face. Issei, meanwhile completely unaware of the scene behind him, continued walking to his classroom. Oi, what the hell are you doing, Murayama? Madohama asked loudly. Can't you see that we're trying to help him with his lack of social skills? With porn? Caddis asked with a dangerous glare. We will never allow some piece of trashes like you to corrupt him. Eyes doesn't need friend like you. She then brought her kendo stick up. Girls, punish them. The rest of the kendo club cried out in unison and charged forward. This is for peeping on us, and try to use Eyes for your own gain, assholes. With that, the pervert duo received quite a beating from the girls of kendo club. Hello, good morning, how do you do? Were the three very familiar lines that Issei wrote on his board whenever someone stopped by to greet him, always with a small smile on his face. Like what was mentioned before, everyone at school was very kind to him, even the teachers and staffs of Kyo Academy. To him, a simple hand gesture of greeting like waving or a warm and kind smile was enough to make him forget about the arching scars on his shoulders, hidden underneath the uniform of Kyo Academy. Some even tried to learn sign language to interact with Issei, but most of the times he would still need to use the board for communication. No matter how much they tried to reach for him, Issei still felt alone and so different from them. That was why he always walked with his head hung low and eyes of sadness, so he wouldn't have to look at friends talking with each other like it was the simplest thing in the world. Deep in thought, Issei didn't acknowledge much about his surrounding and accidentally bumped into someone when that person was walking down to the stair. As he didn't prepare for it, the board and pen was knocked away from his hands and dropped down to the ground. Out of instinct, Issei made a sorry gesture by drawing a circle on his chest with his knuckle and kneeled down to pick up his things. But before he could grab his pen, that person that he bumped into kneeled down in front of him as well and reached their slender arm out and picked up the small object. From the first glance, Issei was sure that it was a girl. Issei took the pen from her hand and hurriedly wrote down the thank you words on his board and showed it to her. But as soon as the board was brought out, it lowered a little when Issei realized that in front of him, the girl he bumped into was none other than the most beautiful girl of Kyo Academy, Rias Gremory. She was wearing a gentle smile on her face while looking at him with her big and warm blue-green eyes. Rias was a young woman who appeared to be in her late teens with light skin, blue-green eyes, and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature, also Issei's most memorized thing about Rias, was her long, crimson-red thigh-length hair, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also had loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She was wearing the Kyo Academy girls' school uniform, which consists of a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt, with a black ribbon on her shirt collar worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset, a magenta skirt with white accents, and brown dress shoes over white crew-length socks. His lack of confidence immediately kicked in, especially in front of a beautiful girl like Rias. Issei quickly stood up and bowed his head to her before walking away without noticing that Rias was wearing a sympathy smile. Rias Gremory was a third-year student of Kyo Academy, and secretly she was Issei's biggest crush. His feeling for the crimson-haired young woman developed the moment he saw her when he first arrived at Kyo, but it wasn't like he got any chance with a girl like that. She was beautiful, smart, and got a bright future, while he was nothing but a deaf boy with mental problem. Simple and quiet, those were the two words that could describe his life the best. Even if people always tried to be nice to him, Issei still felt so alone, so different from them. There was nothing special about him. And after all, not that he could hear anything from the world around him. These are the documents about that second-year student, Matsuda-kun, Butchu. Akino Hanjima said as she put a stack of documents down to the table in front of Rias. I saw Tsubaki-san searched for these informations as well. Maybe Kaichu is aiming for him too. Akino was a third-year, young woman with an incredible buxom figure with very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair was tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with 2 strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. Like most of the girls at Kyo Academy, she was wearing the customary Kyo Academy girls' school uniform, along with black knee-high socks. Akino was not only the second most beautiful idols in the hearts of every student at Kyo, males or females, but she was also the best friend of Rias Gremory, a high-class and pure-blood devil. I will read it later, Akino, Rias said without even took a glance at the document. Her crystal-clear blue-green eyes was looking at an open book resting on her laps. Her hands were moving around in various symbols and gestures. What are you reading, Bachu? Akino asked, moving slightly to the side and take a look at what Rias was reading. Is that sign language? Yes. Rias nodded her head with a smile and made a yes sign by balling her right hand into a fist and shook it up and down with her wrist. Issei Hayaru-kun, isn't it? Akino sat down on the chair in front of Rias with a small smile on her face. That poor second-year boy. It is. Rias nodded her head again. I bumped into him today. His eyes, they were full of sadness and seemed lost, somehow, she said with a sad smile, remembering her first encounter with the deaf boy. Rias had never seen so much sadness from anyone like him before. I heard that he didn't have any close friends and always alone, Akino said before glancing at the documents on the table with the slight disgust in her eyes, and the pervert duo always tried to befriend Issei-kun to use him to get close to the girls. A poor little thing that needed protection and help. That was what everyone at school called Issei Hayaru. Sure, Issei wasn't the best-looking guy at school, as that title rightfully belonged to the handsome prince of Kyo, Kiba Rias, but there was just something about Issei that made people wanted to help him, not just because of his deafness. Plus, the girls did say that he is very cute whenever he greeted them with the words on the board like that. Too bad that he was too shy to acknowledge their attempt to be friend with him. Issei always separated himself from whatever the people around him was doing. I want to help him too, Akino. Rias looked at her with a smile. I realized that, while everyone is trying to help and showing their kindness to him, no one actually cared enough to learn sign language, the best way to communicate with Issei. Maybe that was the reason he felt lost and different from others, because no one had never tried to talk to him like this and approached him this way before. I see. I came to the human world to live as a normal girl, Rias said, and returned her attention to the book. I chose to not live as Rias Gremory, the heiress of Gremory household, but as Rias, a simple teenager girl who has a normal life. I don't need my magic or power to save a poor soul from loneliness and sadness. That is very great of you for doing something like that, Bachu. Akino smiled, and then her smile turned into a teasing one. By any chance that you like him? She teased with a playful tone. Moo, Akino, I am being very serious here. Rias pouted. Ara, relax, I'm just kidding, you know. Akino giggled while shaking her head, but still, how are you going to approach him? It isn't like someone has quite a reputation at school like you can walk to him and say, hey, let's befriend because I know sign language too. That poor boy would freak out, you know. I know, I will wait for another opportunity to come then. Rias smiled. For now, I will try to learn this. She pointed to the book. This sounds fun, I must say. Akino nodded her head and looked at the pictures on the pages. Can I learn it too? Go ahead. Line break. Issei Hayaru looked up a little when a small piece of paper with words written on it was put onto his table just above his notebook, and saw Eika Kuryu, a classmate who by far the closest person that maybe Issei could call a friend at school. Not that they were very close or anything, but Kuryu had been the one who spent most of her times in class writing down everything the teachers said for Issei. Something he was very grateful, since not everything they explained were written on the board. Issei also saw Madohama and Matsuda, the infamous pervert duo, standing behind her while talking with each other with lecherous smiles. His eyes then moved down and read the paper Kuryu was showing him. Those two idiots are thinking if you like to take a wild guess about our class new student. Issei immediately reached his hand for his board and quickly wrote down the sentence. We have a new student. Kuryu nodded her head at that before taking out a small handbook, taking some seconds to write down her answer, and tore the paper away and gave it to Issei. I heard it is a very cute girl. A small smile appeared on Issei's face, but his eyes still stayed at the same sad manner. That explained why those two are so giddy about it. He turned the board around and showed it to Kuryu, who nodded again. Class started soon after that. From what Issei could see, the students were all excited and looking forward to this new student. Issei, however, was keeping his attention on the math exercises he was currently working on. It wasn't like one more classmate was going to change anything to his life. He saw the headmaster said something, and after that, the door of his classroom was opened. He immediately saw Matsuda and Madohama stood up from their seat and made a cheer of excitement. Kuryu was right, because it was a girl, and also a very beautiful one. She was an attractive young woman with violet eyes. She had long black hair down to her hips, a slender body with a large bust. Like the other girls, she was wearing the uniform for girls of Kyo Academy. The teacher explained, and Kuryu immediately wrote down the name of the girl on a small note before giving it to Issei. Amano Yuuma, Heaven's Evening Days. That was a very beautiful name. The girl then smiled cutely and waved her hand to the class, making the boys cheered out excitedly while the girls scowled at them. The teacher then pointed his hand to Issei's direction, and he couldn't help but turn to the side and see an empty seat beside him. Yuma looked at the seat before nodding her head at the teacher, walking toward it but not before glancing at Matsuda. Issei raised an eyebrow at this. He didn't know if anyone noticed it, but for some reason he could feel that the glance wasn't very friendly. Sure, Matsuda was one of female's most dangerous enemies, but Yuma was a new student. She wouldn't know about him unless his reputation had gone outside of Kyo Academy. Yuma then sat down the seat next to him before turning her head to look at Issei. A smile then appeared on her face as she brought out her hands and said something. Issei only took her hand and shook it, but he couldn't reply to what she was saying. Can I know your name? Amano, Yuma repeated for the third time, but all the brown-haired boy did was shaking it, though he was a little hesitating at first. He is deaf, you see, Kuryu said with shrug, making Yuma gasp. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, Amano said with an apologetic smile. She then took out her notebook from her bag and wrote down a few words. I'm Amano Yuma, what is your name? She turned it around and showed it to Issei. Let me warn you though, he is very shy. Kuryu added. Is that so? Yuma nodded her head while smiling sadly. Hiya to Issei. Issei introduced himself with the board, though he didn't say anything more. Nice to meet you, Ise-kun, D. She ended it with a smiling face as well as with her own cute smile, something that managed to force out a forced, yet small smile on his face. Let's be friends. His eyes widened like dinner plates after seeing that sentence. It wasn't the first time someone showed him those words, but that was the first time they didn't go with bad intentions behind it, as the pervert duo were usually the one. Tenwi. He could tell it from Yuma's smile that she really meant it. Issei quickly grabbed the pen and wrote down the words onto his board. Yes, let's be friend. Issei turned it around and showed it to Yuma. He gulped slightly before opening his lips and said friend. Kuryu and those who were sitting around him gasped in shock. Issei didn't know if he spelled the word correct or not. It had been a long time since the last time he talked, and without the sense of hearing it was really hard to know what he was saying. Needed he just talk? Madohama asked in shock, with his glasses falling from his eyes. Issei then made a sign with his index fingers linking together and brought his right hand forward. The black-haired girl looked at it for a moment before doing what Issei just did, linking her index finger with his. Friend, she brought her notebook up with a large smile. Line break. The next few days were the happiest times of Issei's life. Yuma was his first real friend after that accident, and she proved herself to be not only the best kind of friend anyone could wish for, but the best friend a deaf boy could ask for. Yuma made his quiet life a lot livelier than before with her cheerful and sweet nature, being able to bring out the brightest smile from him. Kuryu was no longer the only person in his class that helped him with schoolwork, as that job was taken by Yuma. She effortlessly wrote down everything about the teacher's lectures for Issei and informed him everything the teacher said during class. Yuma also helped him with class duties like cleaning the blackboard and classroom, as well as reorganizing the tables and chairs after school ended. Also during lunch break, she was also the one who was there eating lunch with Issei and kept the lonely boy occupied, just like what she did every moment of the school days. Those who knew Issei well, especially his parent, couldn't help but notice some change from the deaf boy, as he smiled a lot more than before and the sadness could no longer be seen on his face. Okay then, how can I say Angel? Yuma showed him the board with a sweet smile. A week had passed since the two became friends with each other, and it was yet another break time, and Issei was teaching his best friend sign language. Yuma learned them very fast and already got the basic, a few more lessons and she could freely communicate with him. However, before he could show her the sign, Matsuda came forward with a forced brave smile and said something to the black-haired girl that made the whole classroom stop whatever they were doing and looked at them with wide eyes. He then said something to Yuma that made her nod her head, making the whole classroom cry out in absolute shock and Matsuda in utter joy. Out of curiosity, Issei turned to Kuryu and pulled on her sleeve. What is going on? He asked. Kuryu turned to look at him for a second before grabbing her notebook. Matsuda just confessed his feeling for Yuma. Kuryu showed it to Issei, and the next statement made his heart miss a beat, and she agreed to be his girlfriend. Yuma then sat down to her seat again with a bright smile, but it instantly disappeared when she saw the look on Issei's face. What's wrong? She asked with signs. Nothing. The deaf boy shook his head and forced out a smile, but it didn't take a genius to realize it wasn't a real one. Yuma then moved her head to look at him in the eyes, but he immediately attempted to look away, letting Yuma know what happened to him. Hey, look at me. Yuma did the signs before putting her hand on Issei's cheeks and whispered, I don't love him, Ise-kun. I don't care if you're human or not, you're my best friend and nothing is going to change that. She then made a small smile. Issei then turned his board around with his index finger brought out. Still friend? He asked. Still friend. Yuma nodded her head and answered him by linking their index fingers together. Though, for some reason he couldn't help but smile sadly at that. Today was Saturday weekend and Issei decided not to stay in his house the entire day like he usually did. Issei was kind of sad to know that Yuma wouldn't be able to hang out with him today, because she got her first date with Matsuda today as well, but Issei wouldn't let that get to him, since Yuma was her own and she got her own life and her own decision to make. He didn't like Matsuda and he had never hated the pervert Baldy either. Issei of course didn't get to decide what Yuma should and shouldn't do, he just hoped that his friend knew what she was doing. But it would never change the fact that she was his friend, the first best friend he had ever had. Issei headed to the town's library, one of the only places around town he was comfortable with. Since the library of Kyo Town had a very strict rule about noise, Issei didn't have to worry about other people calling out for him or trying to get his attention with voice there. Plus, aside from the time he would spend with Yuma, he also wanted to stay alone most of the time, so the library was a perfect place for a boy like him. Though, the road to the library or any places around town was never pleasant. Issei usually went out with his mom or his dad, but today when he finally decided to go out all on himself, Issei would have to pay extra attention to everything around him with his eyes, especially whenever he was crossing the streets. It was very inconvenient without your sense of hearing, especially with the things that you couldn't see with your eyes. Issei had to look around every corner, checking everything, even a corner on the street, to make sure that nothing was going to get on his path without him knowing. But the bright side of this extra carefulness was that Issei was very careful with everything that he was doing. It took Issei a total 15 minutes to get to the library by foot, as he also stopped by at a local Circle K to buy a piece of sandwich, which he finished up before walking into the place. Kyo's library wasn't the best library on the world, but he could find almost anything there, in books and various other things like newspapers, which were constantly updated every day. Issei was one of the most familiar members of the place, since it was kind of hard not to notice the way of a deaf boy. Giving his card to the librarian, Issei headed into the place and went to the history section. Yesterday he, along with everyone in the class, received a big homework about the country's history and expected to make a report about it next Saturday. Since the students were allowed to freely choose any country they want, Issei decided that he would stick to the country that he was born at, Japan. Even though he knew that a lot of classmates would choose Japan as well, but because Issei was deaf, he would have to make his report different than others. A chance for him to make it unique and the best of all, also to get him the best mark from the teacher. Grabbing every copy of the history books of Japan, which were 10 massive ones, Issei carried them to the table beside the window as carefully as he could, since the stack of books was blocking his view. Though, he made it there safe and sound without bumping into anyone, since if he put on his guard and being extra careful, Issei could do almost anything smoothly even without his sense of hearing. Human habitation in the Japanese archipelago could be traced back to prehistoric times, various periods but separated into 4 different parts of time, which were prehistoric and ancient Japan, classical Japan, medieval Japan, and modern Japan. The Jomon period, named after its cord-marked pottery, was followed by the Yayoi in the first millennium BC, when new technologies were introduced from continental Asia. During this period, in the 1st century AD, the first known written reference to Japan was recorded in the Chinese Book of Han, and luckily for Issei he managed to find a translation among the history books. Between the 3rd century and the 8th century, Japan's many kingdoms and tribes gradually came to be unified under a centralized government, nominally controlled by the emperor. However, the imperial dynasty established at this time continued to reign over Japan to this day. In 794, a new imperial capital was established at Heian Kyo, known as the modern Kyoto, marking the beginning of the Heian period, which lasted until 1185. The Heian period was considered a golden age of classical Japanese culture. Japanese religious life from this time and onwards was a mix of Buddhism, which had been introduced via Korea, and native religious practices known as Shinto. Issei took notes of everything he found inside of the books, completely lost track of times as he was too focused to his researching. He learned about Japan's history during history class, but to learn more about it like this, it was truly amazing when he dug deeper into the history of his country. But what took his attention the most was the mythology of the Shinto gods. As he was halfway there, Issei suddenly felt someone tapped on his shoulder. His head turned to the side and almost jumped in shock when he saw who it was. His hands hurriedly reached out to grab the board and his pen, but finally realized that he left the board at his home because Issei didn't expect to meet any of his friends or anyone he knew today when he was working in the library. It was Rias Gremory, wearing normal clothes and holding a few books in her hands. As quickly as he could, he reached for the second choice, the pen and the note he was using to take note of the specific events, but Rias brought her hand up to stop him while shaking her head, making Issei widen his eyes in surprise. The crimson-haired girl then put her books down to Issei's table before using her hands to make sign, making Issei's eyes to widen even more than before when he finally realized that she was using sign language. "Don't worry, I know sign language," Rias smiled, though she had to speak it out while making signs since she wasn't a professional yet. "Hello, eyes." She greeted with a small tone, since she was in the library with a strict rule about noise. Issei looked at her for a moment before replying. "Really?" he asked in surprise. So far, the only people Issei knew that knew sign language were his teacher, the one who taught him sign language, and his parent, who learned it for him. Yuma being the newest addition to this little group, but Issei was the one who was teaching her and she was only at the basic. "Still learning, but I think I can talk with you like this," Rias smiled, making Issei blush a little before continuing. "Mind if I sit down with you?" Issei didn't know how to reply, he only nodded his head nervously. Rias Gremory, the most beautiful girl of Kyo Academy, and most important of all, she was his secret crush. He knew that she was very smart, so it wasn't a surprise to find her at the library, but why did she decide to sit with him? Issei had to wonder that in his head, since he could never keep anyone company and interest with his deafness. Though he was a little uncomfortable when a beautiful lady like her sat with him like this, it wasn't like his shyness was completely cured. Now that Yuma was now his friend, Issei made some great improvement over his personality, but he's still very uncomfortable with people he didn't know, and though he didn't show it, he even got a rather rough start with Yuma around him as well. No need to be shy, I won't bite. You know, Rias giggled at the boy nervousness. What are you doing? Rias asked and looked at the history books on Issei's table. There were a lot of them, and from what she saw on the notebook he was writing on, Issei was very careful and detailed about what he was researching. It was for a report to my history class. Issei made the signs with his hands, shaking eye. But before he could continue, Rias took his hand gently into hers, forcing him to flinch slightly at the touch. Her hand was so soft. Don't be so nervous like that. You can think of me as a friend of yours. I don't have that many friends, you know. Then you just have another one now. Issei widened his eyes again at that. Ah, really? Rias nodded her head before pointing at the history books. I know a lot about Japan. Would you mind if I help you? She made the signs with her hands, sparked in excitement. Japan was Rias' most favorite place in the world, and anyone who knew about her huge collection of objects and artifacts of Japan back at her room at the underworld could easily realize and call the crimson-haired devil a Japanophile. Not at all, senpai. And Issei started working on his project once again, this time with Rias' help. She wasn't kidding about her knowledge about Japan, its history, its cultures, as if her mind was made to store the informations about the country where the sun rises and ready to let it all out. Clearly, Rias didn't look like Japanese with her hair and skin tone, more like a foreigner from other country, but her knowledge about Japan could be even more than the ones who spent their life studying the country. The more time passed, the more comfortable Issei got with the beautiful scarlet-haired young woman. It was just like yet a whole lot different than the times he spent with Yuma. Both of them were very friendly and sweet to him, and even though he only hung around with Rias for a short period of time with Rias that day, Issei enjoyed it a lot more than the times with Yuma. He didn't know why. Maybe it was because of his crush for Rias. In the noon, Rias and Issei decided to head to the nearby restaurant to have lunch. There was sign language. Rias and Issei were able to learn a lot more about each other, as it was the only thing that the two of them decided to talk about the whole lunch break. Issei really enjoyed Rias' story and couldn't help but smile a little when she got to the part that let him know she was more or less an otaku, as she talked a whole lot about her collections of manga and anime at home. After a while, Rias asked Issei about his condition. He was a little hesitating at first, because no one had ever asked him about how he lost his sense of hearing before, even Yuma. Plus, there wasn't much to answer about this, since he didn't remember anything about that accident and a few weeks after that when he was in the hospital. All he remembered was that when he woke up, he couldn't hear anymore. But Issei did tell Rias about the scars on his body, without the painful part of course, and he was 7 years old when he lost his sense of hearing in that accident. All the while, Rias could only look at him sadly. No one should have gone through that painful experience, let alone a young 7-year-old boy. She could only imagine how hard it was for him at that time, woke up and found the whole world would be forever a silent place for you. His ears, especially his eardrums, were also completely damaged, so not even a hearing aid would be able to help him. And she doubted there was a magic that could give him his sense of hearing back. Maybe if he was treated with healing magic right after that accident, but now there was nothing she could do to help him with his deafness now. But she could still help him keep on walking forward to the bright future by being a good friend for Issei, helping him with his shyness and nervousness so that he could get out of his shell. After lunch break, Rias and Issei returned to the library and kept on working till 3 in the afternoon. Everything had its end and Issei had to return home before his father got worried. The boy was a little disappointed that he couldn't spend any more times with Rias, but a promise to meet again from her immediately brightened his mood. As Issei waved his hand goodbye to the crimson-haired girl, he couldn't believe that in just a few days he had become friend with 2 girls, and it wasn't just any 2 ordinary girls, but 2 very beautiful and sweet ones. The deaf boy couldn't ask for more. Maybe this was the first step for him to start a brighter life. Issei turned around and started to head home. Little did he know that he was going to meet Rias again really soon. Line break. It was almost dark and Issei still hadn't gotten home yet, so he decided to take a cross through the park. Nighttime wasn't the best time of the day for deaf people like him, so decided to cross the place where there were the lights, didn't have many vehicles, and dangerous stuffs was the better choice for him. As Issei crossed the park's fountain, his eyes suddenly caught something interesting. It was Matsuda and Yuma. The two of them were looking at each other, with Yuma telling him something that made the bald teen blush and scratched the back of his head. A small smile appeared on his face as he looked at Yuma. She was wearing a short black dress with a small, light purple jacket on top, and they really suited her. Issei hoped that she got a good date and Matsuda treated her well. Then, when Issei turned on his heel and was about to leave the two alone, his eyes widened when he saw Matsuda's face lost its color. Issei turned to Yuma and froze in shock when he saw black wings appeared from her back, with black feathers float in the air, and then dropped down to the ground underneath Matsuda's feet. However, what shocked him the most, and there was no way that he could believe something like it could happen, it was her cute-looking eyes changed into cold, scary eyes, almost murderous. She raised her hand and from that, something like a glowing light spear appeared. His mind immediately told him that it was a weapon and it was dangerous. Time froze as Issei, out of instinct as his body acted even before his mind could react, and for some reason making the scars on his body arch slightly, dropped his bag and ran as fast as he could toward Matsuda. Issei didn't have time to pay attention to the speed he was moving, but he could feel that he was running faster than ever, faster than any sprints he ever did in physical education. Was it a strong burst of adrenaline? Issei didn't know, but all he cared at that moment was getting to Matsuda as fast as possible and pushed him out of the way before Yuma could throw her spear at him. Issei didn't know how much force he used, but he managed to push Matsuda a good amount of distance. Matsuda fell to the ground with his eyes wide in horror, but overall he looked okay and appeared to be screaming. Issei moved his head to the side and saw a terrified expression on Yuma's face, which lost all of its color and as white as a ghost. He suddenly felt something wet and warm running on his arms and dropped down to the ground through his fingers. It was blood, Issei thought as he looked at his hands. And he finally saw the thing that was making both Yuma and Matsuda to look at him with their eyes wide in horror. It was the Black Wings girl's spear, impaling into his flesh, went all the way through his right shoulder to his left shoulder and poking out at the other side. Issei then screamed out in pain as his brain finally answered to the feeling of pain his body was getting. His vision blurry and he fell down to the ground in a dull thud, not before realizing that Matsuda had stood up and ran away while screaming and crying. Just like what Yuma was doing when she saw what she did. Through his darkened vision, Issei could see Yuma run as him while screaming something he could not hear, of course. Though before she could reach him, something like a black orb with crimson aura shot down and hit the ground in front of Yuma, who was only fast enough to create an uncompleted shield of light to protect herself, though she was blown back several feet by a lightning bolt, dashing on the ground with her right arm bleeding badly. She looked up for a second and threw a hatred glare to the person who attacked her before flapping her wings and flew away, but not before turning her tearful eyes to look at Issei and mumbled the sorry word to him. The Black Wings girl finally disappeared into the night sky and Issei finally lost his consciousness. The last thing he saw was a panicking girl with crimson red hair. Line break. Eyes. Rias cried out in horrification as she kneeled down next to him. Her best friend Akino also kneeled down at the other side of the boy with the same panic expression. We're losing him, Akino said hurriedly and put her hand above the light spear, casting a powerful spell in order to disperse the dangerous weapon. After the spear disappeared, Akino turned him around and put both of her hands on the hole on his shoulders, which then glowed with soft yellow light. A magic that could stop blood loss and at the same time heal as long as her hands were on the injures. Think of something quick. I'm not going to keep this for long. We won't be able to save him like this. His body isn't strong enough to handle this kind of injure. Rias shook her head and reached her hand into her pocket, her hands shaking hang in their eyes. She whispered, remembering the smiles he gave her during the time the two of them working together at Kuo's library. She couldn't let him in like this, he already got enough. Are you sure, Rias? Akino asked in bewilderment as Rias pulled out her evil pieces. I thought. Doesn't matter now, Akino. Rias shook her head furiously and took out the pawn, because Issei was just an ordinary human with no special power. One pawn should be enough to save him. I can't let him end like this, he already went through enough in his life. She then moved the pawn piece toward his chest. I have to save him. But no reaction. What? She cried out in shock and hurriedly grabbed the rest of the pawn pieces she got left and put them on his chest. To her bewilderment, they didn't react to him too. No. She chanted in shock and summoned all the pieces she got left, which were 1 bishop, 1 rook and 2 mutation knight pieces. It was the reason why Kiba, her pawn, while having all the attributes of a perfect knight, couldn't be reincarnated into one, and instead, she had to use 3 pawns piece to retrieve him. A mutation piece were very rare, only 1 out of 10 devils could find a single of these pieces in their evil piece set, yet Rias was able to have 2 mutation and pieces in her possession, and both 2 of them were knights. But still, she wasn't so sure yet, and she put all 4 pieces onto his chest. But you ... this is, Akino whispered in shock as 2 out of 5 pieces were glowing. Rias could only stare at them in shock. The knight pieces were shining in an ethereal crimson light. An ordinary human ... was making 2 mutation knight pieces react to him. This boy ... he was special. But you, quick. Akino's cry pulled Rias out of her thought. The girl quickly gathered the rest of the unused pieces while letting the knight stood on his chest. She then stood up, casting the ritual magic around Issei, making a crimson magic circle to appear around him. A crimson demonic power surrounded her body as she held up her hands and chanted, I order, in my name Rias Gremory, you, Issei Hayaru, I resurrect you back to this soil as my servant, and have you reborn as a devil. You might be delighted with your new life. The crimson chess pieces glowed and went into Issei's body. It was done. A few seconds later, Issei's breath became normal. His now devil body was much stronger than human one, but he still needed proper medical attention to fully heal up. He will be all right, for now, Akino said while checking his pulse. It was weak, but steady. I will heal him. You can go home, Akino. Rias nodded her head and put her hand on his forehead. Do you need me to go after that fallen angel? Akino muttered with venom in her voice. With that arm she won't be able to get far. But Rias shook her head. Leave her be for now, Rias said, and Akino sighed in disappointment. If you can, find everything about her for me. Understood. Akino nodded and helped Rias carry Issei. As the teleportation magic circle appeared underneath her feet, Rias and the unconscious disappeared in a flash of red, leaving Aquino alone, but the queen quickly returned to her home. Line break. After learning about the address of Issei's house through Sona, her rival and also the student council's president, Rias quickly teleported to his house and gently laid him down to his bed after moving into his room. She quickly casted a memory spells on the worry parent to make sure they wouldn't question and get more worry about their son's absence. Getting a dry towel and a bucket of hot water from the bathroom near his room, Rias returned to Issei's room and began to clean the blood from his body. After removing his shirt, Rias couldn't help but gasp when she saw just how horrible his scars were. From the right shoulder, to the area around his shoulder blade area behind his back, down to his arm, just above his elbow was covered with horrible-looking scars. As scars didn't grow with the body, having scars like this showed that it was much more terrible when he was 7 years old. If she was right, then these scars used to cover nearly a half of his body when he was young. Made her wonder what kind of an accident was that and how he still managed to stay alive after that. He was lucky that he only lost his sense of hearing. What happened to you? Eyes. After all the blood was wiped away from his body, Rias stood up and began to strip. The magic she was going to use required as much skin contact as possible, so she would have to stay naked all the while. Not that she minded anyway, since Issei was anything but a pervert. Lying down next to him, Issei hugged the boy as close to her body as possible, slowly emitting the healing aura through her skin into his hurt body. He then whimpered quietly but didn't appear to wake up. She stared at the scars on his body, her heart saddened by the sight. He moved again, this time muttering something so low that even with her devil's ear couldn't hear it. "What are you dreaming, Eyes?" she asked with a soft tone. She knew it was wrong, but a little peek should be fine. And this way, she would be able to learn more about her cute knight. He wasn't just a simple servant of her, Issei was now her knight. Putting her hand on his forehead and closed her eyes, Rias casted the spell that would allow her to enter the dream Issei was having. Line break. Rias opened her eyes and looked around. She was standing barefoot on the lush grass of a garden behind a massive, tradition-looking building. Its designs reminded her of the old and traditional palaces of Japan. The garden she was at was very big, maybe as big as the garden of Gremory residence, her house at the underworld. The plants and flowers were also various. This place, to put it simply, was beautiful. "Take it easy, Hayato-san, don't push him so hard like that." Rias turned her head to the side after hearing that, and widened her eyes when she finally saw the person who said that. "Aquino," Rias gasped in shock. No. That person was not Aquino. But her face clearly did look a lot like her queen, but with yellow, almost glowing golden eyes. Though her long black hair was styled in the traditional Heim cut, with 2 bangs framing her face perfectly and the rest of her long black hair flowing freely behind her back, with 2 large strands of white mixed in. She was wearing a pure white kimono and said traditionally on the wooden floor, a katana with strange design and golden hilt resting on the floor beside her. Rias turned her eyes to the direction where she was looking at and saw a tall, almost towering elderly-looking man standing with a wooden sword in his hand. And to her surprise, there was a boy with brown hair, probably no older than 5 years old, was lying on the ground in front of him with a broken bakken in his hand. "He must be Issei. I didn't sign up for this," she heard him muttered as the boy slowly got on his feet with the sword stabbed into the ground to support him. "You're too strong, Jai-chan. How can I win against someone like you?" he asked in frustration and charged forward again, but the elderly man only needed to sidestep and made a hit onto the boy's back, forcing him down to the ground again. "Win or lose, that is the matter of choices," the man said with a grin. "You only lose if you decided to do so." "Lame," Issei said. "Yufufu, that is some wise words right there." The Aquino look-alike woman giggled before saying, as expect from a man your age, "Hayato-san." The man smirked smugly and nodded his head. "Hey Jito, don't just sit there and agree at what this old man say," Issei cried out while pointing her hand at that woman. "Issei, watch your tone while speaking with Haim-sama," the old man warned with a loud and stern voice. "But Eyes, you have to agree that what he said is the truth." The woman named Jito giggled and Rias couldn't help but nod her head with a smile. "Don't you agree?" Rias froze in shock when she heard the low voice of that Jito's woman right next to her, as she suddenly felt something poke against the small point of her back and a hand put onto her cheek. "How naughty of you, little devil girl, peeping his dream like this." Rias never had the chance to reply because Jito, with the sword in her hand, thrust forward, stabbing it through her body. Rias snapped her eyes open and sat straight up with her eyes widened in horror, her mouth gasping like a fish out of water. Her hand immediately shot to the spot where that woman, Jito, stabbed her in the back and all the way up to her chest, but couldn't find any blood. Her body covered with sweats, her heart pounding with fast heartbeats as Rias realized that, in just a matter of seconds, she actually felt the pain of having a blade went through her body, which was unheard of whenever one used that kind of spell to enter others' dream. Rias knew it wasn't just any ordinary dream but an actual fragment of Issei's memories, when he was younger and before that accident that took away his sense of hearing. That elderly man, he must be a relative of Issei. Maybe he was Issei's grandfather and was teaching the boy swordsmanship. But that woman whose face greatly resembled Aquino, the one who stabbed her, Jito. It was as if she was real, she was actually there and wasn't just a part of Issei's memories. Or was it just her imagination? Shaking her head to push those thoughts out of her mind, Rias turned her eyes to look at the clock on the table next to the bed and saw that it was 5 in the morning. The sun was already up and the sky was slowly brightening. Looking down to the boy next to her, she saw that Issei was still sleeping soundly. Raising her hand and casted a medical check spell, Rias smiled when she saw that Issei's body was fully healed and he should wake up soon enough and start his new life as her knight. However, there was also a lot of things she would need to think about, especially his deafness and communication problem with the former could be a huge disadvantage for Issei in the future battles as well as during his duties as one of her servants. She would have to discuss about those with her queen later. When Rias was about to get up and return to her house before Issei could wake up, since he already got enough for a night, waking up in the morning with a naked girl on his bed would be overwhelmed for the poor boy. Something unexpected happened. Rias put her hands onto the bed and pushed herself up. Issei suddenly turned to her side and wrapped his arm around her waist, bringing Rias back down to the bed much to her surprise. "Eyes," she muttered in surprise, finding herself struggle against his grip as she was pinned down to the bed and couldn't move her body other than her limbs. Even though he was just turned into a devil, his physical strength already outmatched hers, a pure-blood devil. Rias blushed slightly by the feeling of his arms against her bared skin. Though she did hug him all night, it wasn't until now that she realized he had some well-defined muscles on his body. But wake up like this would be very awkward. Before Rias could make another attempt to shake herself of him again, Rias suddenly heard the painfully groans coming from the brown-haired boy and they made her stop what she was doing to look down at him. Issei was still asleep, yet his face was showing that he was in pain and he was shaking slightly. At first, she thought it was because of the side effect of the light spear that fallen angel speared Issei or something like that, but remembered the result of her medical checking spell and there was no way that the spell could tell her wrong. However, when she saw Issei took his arm back and grabbed his scared shoulder, she finally realized that it was because of the scars. It couldn't be possibly that Issei had to go through that painfully pain every morning because of those scars ever since he was 7. "Eyes," Rias whispered sadly. There were healing spells that could make scars disappear, but Rias didn't know scars that already last for more than 10 years could disappear by using those magic. The most certain way to take care of those scars was the healing magic of Phoenix Clan, but Rias' issue with them would make her think twice before turning to them for help. Deep in thought, Rias didn't realize that Issei was slowly opening his eyes right at the moment the alarm clock went off, as the pain at the right side of his body woke him up just like usual. And as soon as he saw Rias lying naked next to him, Issei forgot all about the pain and screamed out in shock and jumped out of the bed while looking at Rias with his eyes as wide as dinner plates. Rias clearly didn't expect him to be able to scream that loud. Issei pointed at her before raising his hands to rapidly make the signs, so fast that Rias hardly be able to keep up with them. "What are you doing in my room?" "Wait, forget that. Why are you naked?" Issei asked before the memories of last night acknowledged by his brain. Matsuda, Yuma, the black wings that grew from his best friend's back. Issei snapped his head to his shoulder and looked at the places where the spear of light pierced him. To his surprise, he couldn't find any holes or even new scars, only the old scars on the right side of his body. Was it a dream? He thought. That must be it, because there was no way Yuma, the sweet girl who didn't hesitate to make friend with him, could be a Tengu Yakai like in the bedtime stories his mother used to tell him when he was young or whatever she was. Rias looked at Issei and sighed. The boy must be overwhelmed by everything that happened last night, and with what he found this morning, it must be too much for him to handle. Calm down, Eyes. Rias shook her head and started to communicate with him through signs. Before you start to wonder, yes, everything that happened last night wasn't a dream. Amano Yuma accidentally killed you last night when you tried to save that boy, Matsuda. Issei widened his eyes in shock. So everything was real. Yuma did try to kill Matsuda if not for Issei to take that spear for the pervert Baldy. But how am I still alive? He asked. I will explain later, Rias said when she heard the sound of running outside of Issei's room. His scream must woke them up. Not even a second later, Issei's mother busted in and started to search for her son, found him sitting on the floor completely naked. But when she turned to look at the beautiful girl, also as naked as the day she was born, sitting on his bed waving her hand at Midori with a beautiful smile on her face, Issei's mother immediately came to a conclusion that she didn't think that she would ever come to. Sorry for disturbing, dear, Midori said with a small, embarrassed smile before as quickly as she could leave the room without any other words. Issei just looked at mother in confusion. He didn't know what she just told Rias, but he got a feeling that he wouldn't want to know. You, Adu-san. What's wrong, Aka-san? You look like you just saw a ghost. See, Eyes did, with a foreigner. Oh, Aka-san. Aka-san, what happened? International hell. Eyes did. Aka-san. Aka-san. Calm down. Aka-san. Rias could only giggle at the conversation between the mother and father while Issei just looked at her with the same look of confusion. Itadekamasu, Rias said cheerfully before taking the cup of miso soup from Issei's mother and tried it with her spoon. These are very delicious, Aka-sama, Rias said brightly, at the same time making signs with her hands so that Issei, who was sitting next to her, would know what she was saying. You know sign language too. Midori Hayato asked in surprise while also doing sign language. A few years ago, Midori and her husband both agreed to communicate with each other with verbal and non-verbal ways so that their son wouldn't feel left out every time he was home. And by the way, thank you very much. Yes, Aka-sama, I learned it recently. Rias nodded her head with a beautiful smile for eyes, of course. Midori smiled brightly and Issei at the same time widened his eyes. She learnt sign language for him. Eyes. His father put his bowl and chopsticks down to the table before saying, shouldn't you explain your girlfriend to us? He asked with a slight teasing tone and Issei could see that he was teasing him by looking at the expression on the man's face. She is not my girlfriend. But before he could continue, Rias came forward and wiped the food at the corner of his mouth with a handkerchief, making the parent coo in delight. After that, the crimson-haired girl put her chopstick down and bowed her head a little. I apologize for not introducing myself, Adu-sama, Aka-sama. I brought shame to the house of Gremory. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rias Gremory. I attend the same academy as Hayato Issei-kun. It's a pleasure to meet you all. She smiled. Dad responds with a weird face. Is that so? That's amazing. Issei's father laughed. Haha. Are you from a foreign country? Your Japanese is very good. Yes, due to my father's work, I have been living in Japan for a long time. The man nodded his head at that and picked up his chopstick again, though Issei's mother was still eyeing Rias suspiciously. Issei always told her everything that happened at school, and as far as she concerned, he only got one close friend who was girl at school and her hair was black, not crimson like this young woman sitting beside him. Is Rias-sen correct? Yes, Aka-sama. What kind of relationship do you have with Eyes? She asked curiously. We are just a senior and a junior who are quite close to each other, Aka-sama. Oh, I see, then that explained it, but however, may I ask what are you doing on the bed with my son? Eyes said he has nightmares, so I was just sleeping with him. Just sleeping together. The both of you are naked. Nowadays, people sleep naked when they sleep together, Aka-sama. That was some big lie and Issei nearly choked on the rice he was eating. There was no way his mother could believe something like that. Is that so? So people sleep together naked lately. At that moment, Issei realized that his mom's eyes look weird. They look empty, as if she was possessed by something. He glanced to Rias and saw her winked at him. Line break. With his condition, Issei thought he would never think that he would be able to join any club, let alone the most sorted-out club of Kyoto Academy, a cult research club whose president were none other than Rias Gremory. The reason it was sorted out so much by the students was that the club consisted of all most popular individuals of Kyoto Academy and all of them were here. The clubroom, which located at the old school building itself, was fascinating, decorated mostly with Victorian-style furniture. Though, there were weird signs and words in every area of the classroom. The floor, the walls, and the ceiling, they are all covered with weird signs. And the one which stood out the most was the circle drawn at the center of the room. It was a magic circle that took up most of the space in this room. He was a little creep out when he found that it wasn't any magic trick but an actual, magic circle made by real magic. Sitting on the couch beside him was a petite girl around 15 years of age with white hair and hazel eyes. The front of her hair had 2 long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back has a short bob cut. She was wearing a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair and wearing the Kyoto Academy girls' school uniform, without the shoulder cape. She was Kaneko Taoju, first-year student of Kyoto Academy, hailed at Kyoto's mascot by her incredible cute appearance. The person who came to his classroom and led him to the Orcs clubroom was none other than the handsome prince of Kyoto Academy, Kiba Yudo. Yudo was a handsome young man with short blonde hair, gray eyes, and a mole under his left eye. And the last person was the girl who shared the same rank of 2 Great One-sama with Rias, Akino Hanjima. The black-haired girl was making something at the other side of the clubroom, though her eyes kept glancing at Issei and it made him a little uncomfortable and nervous under her gaze. Here, please have some cookies. Akino walked to him with a tray of cookies in her hands, putting them down to the table and bring up her hands to make some signs, making Issei to widen his eyes in surprise. You learnt sign language too? Issei asked. Yes, though I'm not as good as Butchu. Akino shrugged and stood up. Butchu, Rias Gremory-senpai? Issei asked and Akino nodded her head. Where is she anyway? She went to buy something. Akino then winked at him. It was a surprise for you. Issei widened his eyes at that. Though, he didn't need to wait long because a few minutes later Rias returned by appearing from the magic circle with a small box in her hands. Giving Akino and everyone a warm greeting, the crimson-haired girl then walked to the chair in front of Issei and sat down with a small smile on her face. Hello Eyes, did Akino and everyone treat you well? Why yes, Issei nervously nodded his head. I think I will head straight to the point. Will it trouble you? Rias gestured her hands forward and Issei shook his head. He was waiting for it. After all, we, the Occult Research Club, welcome you. Rias paused for a second before making the sign of devil on top her head as a devil. Issei was shocked and completely stunned by the news. Akino then came to him again, this time carrying a cup of hot tea with her. Please have some tea. She made the sign and Issei made a thank you sign before grabbing the tea, drinking it in one gulp, trying to absorb the news. It tastes very good. The boy couldn't help but comply with a small smile on his face. Ura. Akino put her hand to her mouth to hide her giggle before making the thank you sign as well. Thank you very much. Issei then returned his attention back to Rias and started to ask her. What do you mean? But he was stopped when Rias held up a hand to stop him before turning to Aquino. Aquino, you sit over here as well. Yes, but you. The black-haired girl nodded his head and sat down next to Rias, who then opened the box she was holding all this time and brought out what looked like a pair of Bluetooth headphones with strange design. Rias then stood up and reached her hands to put the headphones on Issei's ears. When they were in place, Rias pressed the button on the right headphone, making a small crimson magic circle appeared and stayed there. Nothing happened at first, but the next second, Issei widened his eyes in total shock when he heard the sounds of an academy full of students during break time. The voices, the shouts, he heard it all. Hello, do you read me, eyes? Issei looked at Rias and saw her smiling at him. Hi. Issei couldn't help but gasp when he heard his own voice, something that he hadn't heard for a very, very long time. I can hear. He stuttered, his eyes watered slightly. He could hear her, hear them, he could hear himself. He could hear, again. Hey, don't cry. A boy shouldn't cry like that, Rias said warmly and wiped the tears away from his eyes. Rias-senpai, Issei muttered, and Rias nodded her head rapidly. I can hear again. Yes, eyes, you can hear again. Rias smiled at him and sat down. But how? It was kind of hard for him to talk again after a long time rarely speaking, but he was sure he could get used to it after a while. Magical headphones, converting sound into vibrations and directly send them to your brain. You can say that they are acting as your new eardrums, replacing the old and destroyed ones. Issei reached his hands up and touched the headphones. It was a gift. Rias smiled. I can't take ... Issei shook his head and removed the headphones from his ears and put them down to the table, much to Rias and everyone's surprise. Even thought he wanted it. It was wrong to take something that wasn't yours. I can't. He was about to make the signs when Rias suddenly grabbed his hands, stopping him from doing so, and used her other hands to put the headphones to his ears again. Like I said, it was a gift, eyes. Rias said sternly before her eyes softened. I only want the best for my servants, so giving you back your sense of hearing is the least I can do, you know. But a glare from her immediately stopped Issei from saying anything more. I understand. Good, though you will only be able to use them whenever you are with us, Rias said, because that magic circle won't disappear whenever it was in use. People around you can get shocked when they find out that such magical items like that actually exist. I understand. Issei nodded his head. It wasn't a big price anyway. He then remembered what Rias told him at the beginning. What did you ... mean ... when you said, I'm devil? Issei asked again. Okay then, I will return back to the matter at hand then. We are all devils. Rias then observed the expression on Issei's face before saying, your expression says that you don't believe what I am saying. Well, that can't be helped. You did see the girl with black wings last night, didn't you? Yuma-chan, Issei whispered with a nod of his head. I see that you two used to be friends with each other. Rias nodded her head. She's a fallen angel. Issei gasped. They are former angels who serve God, but they are beings who have fallen to hell because they had evil intentions. They are also the enemy of us devils. What? Issei asked in disbelief. Yuma, enemy with each other. No way was that going to happen. Yuma did accidentally kill him last night, but she definitely got a reason behind it. Plus, she didn't aim for him at the beginning. It was Matsuda, and he saw the pain and horror look on her face when she realized what she had done. Speaking of Yuma, his best friend suddenly mysteriously disappeared this morning, which saddened him. She disappeared from everyone's mind, and no one could remember a girl named Amano Yuma other than Issei. Matsuda didn't go to school today. He heard that his parent took him to the hospital and already asked permission to let their son skip school for a day from the teachers. We, the devils, have been at war with the fallen angels since ancient times. We have been fighting over the possession of the underworld, which is also known as hell in the human world. The underworld is split into two areas, one for devils and one for fallen angels. The devils form pacts with humans and receive their sacrifices and increase their strength. The fallen angels, on the other hand, control humans to eliminate devils. At this point, the angels come in to destroy these two races on God's orders, which create the three forces. This has been going on since ancient times. Wait, you mean, I and Yuma-chan, we can't be friend? It seems it is the only thing that you're concerning about. Rias made a sign before saying yes, eyes, you can't be friend with her. She then turned to Aquino and nodded her head. The black-haired young woman then pulled out a picture from her bag. This is her, right? Amano Yuma-chan. Issei looked at the photo and nodded his head. The photo was a clear picture of her, though there were black wings growing from her back. This girl is ... no, this is a fallen angel. She was the one that attacked Matsuda last night. Rias continued, and Issei could only stare at the picture with his eyes wide, his hands balling into fists. This fallen angel came in contact with him to accomplish a certain goal. After she accomplished it, she got rid of any record and evidence regarding herself. That is why no one, other than you and us, can remember her. Matsuda probably remember her too, but last time I checked, he was too freaked out to even form a proper word. Rias muttered. To think at first she wanted to have that coward at her servant. Goal, yes, to kill him. But why? Issei asked in disbelief. The sweat Amano Yuma, his best friend ... was ready to kill a human being without a second thought. It couldn't be helped. Rias shook her head. That boy, you were just unlucky, and your heroic act caught yourself into her spear, and you got killed. But he was still alive. Issei was hoping that last night was just a dream, but it seemed it was very real. but I'm still alive. The more he talked, the more he got used to speaking again. Issei could almost speak fluently now. The reason why she approached you is because she wanted to use you to get close to Matsuda, since he and his friend always tried to befriend with you. Rias said with that, she could check if there is a dangerous thing inside him. Yuma must have received a weak response from it. That's why she took her time checking him. Then she confirmed it. That boy were a human who possessed a sacred gear. Sacred gear. Sacred gear is an irregular power that is bestowed to certain humans. For example, most of the people whose names are recorded in history are said to be possessors of a sacred gear. They use the power of their sacred gear to record their name in history. Yudo spoke up, explaining the term to him. Presently, there are people who possess sacred gears within their bodies. You know those people who play an important role worldwide. Most of those people possess a sacred gear. Akino continued after Kiba. We still don't know anything about Matsuda's sacred gear yet, but the fallen angel, Amano Yuma, she must saw his sacred gear as a threat and therefore decided to kill him. Rias then pulled out a single leaflet. Matsuda was too freaked out, but in that moment he did beg for someone to come to save him, so hard that he summoned me and Akino here. Issei nodded his head before you, wondering how he got this. One of our familiars was disguised as a human and was handing them out in the business district, and Matsuda got this. When I was summoned and saw what happened, I knew right away that you rushed in to save that boy from the fallen angel. You were on the brink of death, so I decided to save your life. I couldn't let you end up like that. I can't let you die before you can at least find happiness for your life. Issei widened his eyes at Rias' soft voice, although, as a devil. You were reborn as a devil of mine, Rias Gremory's servant. As my servant devil. At that moment, wings sprouted from the backs of everyone around him. They're different from the black wings of fallen angels. Their wings were like bat wings. And with that he also felt some kind of sensation on his back. Looking over his shoulder, he saw the same black wings protruding from his back, and he couldn't help but gasp in shock. Too many new things in a day for him. He was shocked and overwhelmed. Let's introduce everyone anew, Yuudo. Kiba smiled at us after Rias called his name. My name is Kiba Yuudo. As you already know, I'm a second year like you, Hayao Issei-kun. I'm a devil too. Nice to meet you. First year. Taojukan Nico. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I'm a devil too. Taojukan Nico bowed her head. My name is Hajime Akino, and I'm in third year. I'm also the vice president of this occult research club. Nice to meet you. Even though I'm like this, I'm also a devil. Yufufu. Hajime Akino bowed her head very politely. And I'm their master, as well as being a devil from the house of Gremory, Rias Gremory. My house holds the rank of a duke. Let's get along a lot more from now on, eyes. Lastly, it was Rias as she introduced herself cheerfully. That night, Issei couldn't sleep. How could he, when this morning he found out that he was reborn as a devil, and a few hours before that, he was killed by the girl he thought was his best friend. There were too much to take in, and Issei hardly believed that his life had taken a turn that he could never expect. He didn't care that much, truthfully, that he was now the servant of the girl got some feeling for. Rias saved his life when he was at the verge of death and brought back his sense of hearing. Even though it was just temporary, it still meant a lot to him. Become her servant and repay her was the least he could do, and from what he could see, Rias would her servants like a slave or something lower than a proper status, so Issei actually didn't care too much about it. What concerned him was Amano Yuma, the girl that he thought was his friend. So many kinds of emotions were in his mind right now. Sad, disappointed, betrayed, and even anger. It took a lot from him not to explore into Rias' face when she said that he and Yuma could no longer be friends because of something happened even before the both of them were born. But was she just using him to get close to Matsuda without getting suspicious? Now he finally understood the glances, the looks Yuma gave Matsuda. Was it a lie? Issei sighed tiredly as he looked at the magical headphones on his table, swirling them around with the tip of his finger. Tomorrow was a day off, so Rias, who Issei had to call Butchu from now, and everyone, would spend their day find out what was his fighting style. Apparently fighting was one of the duties of devils like him. Then, when he was about to stand up, Issei widened his eyes when he saw a black feather drop down to the table in front of him. His head snapped up and saw her, Amano Yuma, with her wings flapped gently, floating outside of his windows, looking at him with a small smile. Though, he could see some change from her too. She was somewhat taller, and her face was more mature, and her body filled out a lot more than before. Issei immediately grabbed the headphones and put it on his ears. Yuma-chan. His greeting shocked her. You can talk now. Yuma asked in surprise, can you hear me? Yes, he nodded and pointed to his headphones, all thanks to this. So, it was the truth. She said with a sad smile, you did turn into a devil. Rias Gremory-senpai saved me, Yuma-chan. Issei said and climbed onto his table to stand in front of her. I'm sorry, eyes. She muttered with tears threatened to fall from her eyes, afraid to meet his eyes, and looked away. That spear ... It was meant to that boy, Matsuda, not you. Don't say it like that, Yum. Rainer. The girl looked up a little and said, it is my real name, Rainer. So Rainer-chan then. Issei smiled, point as Rainer-chan, I'm not angry with you or anything. The fallen angel's eyes widened in surprise. You're my best friend. There is no way that I can hate you. Even if I'm now a devil and you're a fallen angel. But, I killed you, eyes. That spear wasn't for me, right? Issei asked with a smile. Yes ... But ... No, but Ray-chan. Issei said. Reina then finally looked at him, and from her deep purple eyes, Issei could tell that she was telling the truth, that their moments at school together were very real. You know, I hate devils. Issei's shoulder dropped, but I can never hate you, Eyes. You're right, we're friend. There is no way I'm going to hate you just because of our nature. You're my first real friend too, you know, she said softly and wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face into the crook of his neck and smiled softly. Thank you, Eyes. She then pulled back and smiled at him. After I was done with my mission, I promised I will return to you and we can be together again. Rainier smiled at him before turning around. Goodbye, Eyes. Please take care and be careful. Goodbye, Rainier. Issei waved his hand when she flew away, and he stood there until she disappeared into the night sky. Eyes. Over here. Issei Hayato turned his head to the side after hearing that and saw Rias Gremory, his mistress, waving her hand at him with everyone of the occult research club standing around her, a smile on her face. Issei couldn't help but smile. He just loved the way people calling his name like that. The magical headphones he was wearing was giving one of the best times of his life, as he could barely sleep last night due to the excitement and need to wear them again as soon as possible. These headphones would slowly drain his demonic energy from him to convert into battery, so Issei wouldn't have to worry about the headphones run out of energy. Hello everyone. Issei greeted them with a bright smile. Hello, Eyes. Kanekino waved her hand at him while smiling at him beautifully. Kiba also greeted him with his famous Prince Charming smile, while Kaneko remained silent and stoic like usual, though she did wave her hand at him. You seem enjoying yourself, Eyes. Rias smiled as Issei stopped in front of her. The boy was smiling, which was a good thing. The loneliness disappeared from his eyes. Though she doubted Issei's shyness with people was completely cured yet, but it was the first step to get him more sociable like teenager boys his age. Kind of. Issei nodded his head with a smile. Good, I'm glad you're happy, Eyes. Rias smiled and patted him before saying, now, as you already know, Eyes, as one of my servants and as a devil, you have duties, jobs and missions to do to raise your reputation and increase your rank, from low to middle and middle to high-class devil and so on. Issei nodded his head. Rias filled him in the basic ideas yesterday. Some will be very simple, but other can be very dangerous, like hunt down stray devils, or protect me from harms. As you already know, Eyes, we're in the middle of Cold War with the Angel and Fallen Angel faction. Even if there is no longer war, small battles are happening every second all over the world, and devils are being killed by angels' followers, or fallen angels and angels themselves. In order to protect yourself, as well as me, your master, and finish the missions, fighting abilities are very important, and that's why we're all here today. I see. Issei trailed off because that sounded very dangerous. Issei was a little nervous about this. He didn't know if he is capable of fighting. Issei wasn't the weakest in physical education, but he was not the best athlete. He could do exercises like jogging, sprint, or jumping just fine, but he doubted those things would help. Issei didn't know any martial art, or even swordsmanship like the girls at Kendo Club. Rainier could summon light spear that could pierce through him like nothing, so maybe Rias would teach him to trick like that. Magic, spells, or anything akin to that. Rias looked at Issei's nervous expression and couldn't help but think about that dream she saw again. Could it be that Issei could not remember his wife before the accident too? Issei's grandfather taught him swordsmanship, so Issei definitely grabbed the basis of how to fight with sword. Swordman was the most common knights among the reincarnated devils. Even her brother's knight, Kiba's swordmaster, was a swordman. If Issei required 2 mutation knights to reborn him, he had to be somewhat special swordman. But to strengthen her theory, she must test him first. Eyes, I think you should start with Yuudo here. Rias pointed to her pawns. Kiba is my pawn, but his attributes is a lot like a knight, which you are. Kiba stepped forward and offered his hand out. Let's try our best, Eyes-kun. Kiba smiled at him. Yeah, I guess. Issei smiled nervously and nodded his head. A few seconds later, Issei and Kiba stood facing against each other on the schoolyard in front of the old school building with bakken in their hands. The girls backed off a little and made some space for them, so they could fight freely. You ready, Issei-kun? Kiba asked as he held up the wooden stick. Please go easy on me, Issei said nervously and held up his bakken in front of him, just like Kiba. Bachu, please give me permission to promote tonight. Kiba looked at Rias and said loudly. The crimson-haired girl nodded her head and a faint light appeared around Issei's opponent. Begin, Rias said, and immediately Kiba leaped forward, faster than any runners Issei had seen in his life, and charged at him with his sword readied for a strike. Even with a stronger eyesight, Issei was finding it hard keeping up with Kiba's speed, but it wasn't like anything he could not see. To Issei, Kiba was moving like a motorbike going at full speed in front of him, not like an unseenable bullet moving at the supersonic speed. Eyes. At that very moment, when Kiba was approaching him and coming closer and closer with great speed, Issei heard a voice inside of his head. Even the rustiest or a blade-less sword can become a dangerous weapon. As long as you know how to use it. Jai-chan, Issei thought as he finally recognized that voice. His grandfather. The man who Issei spent most of his childhood around with. He remembered it. The moments Issei spent with his grandfather. His eyes widened when he finally realized that he knew what to do. Now, letting his body guide him, Issei changed the way he was holding his sword. Issei held it with his right hand and held it behind him with his body crouched down a little, his eyes sharpened and stayed firm on Kiba. Surprisingly, the movement of the pawn began to decrease in his point of view, but the Knight of Rias Gremory realized wasn't just Kiba who was slowing down. It was as if everything around him was slowing down. But there was no time left to think, his Kiba was right above him. In a lightning-fast movement that made Issei lived up to the attributes of a knight, Issei slammed his bakken against Kiba's wooden sword and twisted his body around to deliver another strike to Kiba's back after the knight lost his balance and fell forward. All of that happened in just a second or two. Rias and everyone were stunned when they saw Kiba struggle to stand on his feet. His eyes were also as wide as dinner plates. "That's a good move, I must say, Issei-kun." Kiba smiled and turned around, holding up his wooden sword, but then gasped when he saw only half of the wooden stick was in his hand while the other half suddenly fell down to the ground next to him. Kiba looked at the cut and found it hard to believe. The cut looked like it was made by an actual, sharp sword. A normal bakken wouldn't be able to make a sharp cut like this. Could it be that he knew undrawn style? That was a style that even not his master was able to use without his demonic energy. Issei looked at the wooden sword within his hand with his eyes wide. Even the teenager boy was wondering what just happened, at the same time wondering how did he do that. It was the first time Issei made those moves, and yet it felt so familiar. Could it be that he also lost the memories of his childhood, not just about the Ictiant? Come to think about it, it had been a long time since Issei last heard about his grandfather, as the man left his family about the same time Issei got caught in that accident and rarely contacted his mother, his daughter nowadays. His family was also too busy to visit him at Hokkaido. Maybe he should ask his mother for his grandfather's number so he could send a few texts to ask him about this. "You caught me by surprise." Issei-kun. Kiba smiled, and from thin air a new bakken appeared in his hand. "But don't expect me to go easy on you next time." He smirked and held up his bakken, this time with a different stance. "Got it." Issei nodded. He felt a lot more confident now, knowing that he knew a thing or two. Shall we continue? Looking at Issei right now, Rias couldn't help but smile. She was right after all. Issei knew how to use a sword, and from the look of it, he managed to catch Kiba, who was the disciple of the strongest knight, off guard with the first try. A few hours later. "You're doing well, keep it up, Eyes." Rias encouraged her knight as he was running around the schoolyard while pulling a massive truck's wheel behind him, with a rope connected the two together. The boy was breathing rather harshly, but Issei was currently finishing his 10th lap and could still make a few more rounds around the schoolyard, something that even he didn't think that he would be able to do if he was normal. "That's amazing. I didn't think that Eyes-kun would be able to overcome your challenge of 8 laps around school, after finishing 500 push-ups, that is," Akino said with a smile, standing alongside with her queen at the sideline watching Issei testing out his fullest potential. "He is better than I expected." Rias nodded her head. "Yuudo, what do you think about Eyes?" "Well, but if you're thinking that he is a strong swordsman, then yes, you're right." The blonde nodded his head. "I think it is because of his deafness. Issei-kun tends to look around a lot and his mind absorb everything he saw. Over time, because of it, I think Issei-kun developed a sharp and strong reaction to danger. It makes him cover his surrounding better and also increase his concentration." "I see." Rias nodded her head before returning her eyes to the running boy. "But it is kind of crazy, but I think that the headphones will only disturb his usual concentration in battle. He will be able to fight a lot better without them." Rias didn't reply. She knew Kiba would come to that conclusion. His sense of hearing would only get in his way, as Issei wasn't used to hearing and come to rely on his eyes only. Plus, those magical headphones would be only temporary solution for his condition, as it could get knocked away or destroyed easily during fights. Line break. As soon as the paper with the number of his grandfather written on it was given to Issei by his mother, the boy immediately borrowed his mother's cell phone and sent him the text. Since he was deaf and his family, including his grandfather, didn't know about the supernatural world, he couldn't let them know that his sense of hearing returned with the help of a pair of magical headphones. "Jai-chan, it's me. Eyes." Issei sent the text before looking at his mother, who was smiling at him and raising her hands. "You used to visit your grandfather a lot." She made the signs every summer vacations. "Holidays. We took you to his place at Tokyo since you always asked us for it." She then made a frown. "He really loved you, so I wonder why he doesn't contact us very often like before." Eyes nodded his head and waited for his grandfather to return his text. Issei immediately picked the phone up when he saw it vibrated slightly. A huge smile appeared on his face when he saw the message. "How are you, my boy?" Issei. Even though Issei didn't hear anything or see anyone coming at him from behind when he stepped into his class, the boy still got the feeling of someone coming at him and immediately stepped out of the way before they could grab him. That person soon revealed to be Matsuda, and since he didn't expect the deaf boy to dodge, he lost his balance and fell down to the ground. "I'm so sorry, Matsuda-san." Issei made the signs before heading to his seat with footsteps faster than usual, because he got the feeling he knew just exactly the reason why Matsuda wanted to have his attention without his partner Madohama around. It probably involved Rainier. Rias warned him that he shouldn't talk, or in his case let everyone know about the fallen angel that erased her existence out of everyone's mind, save for the supernatural beings in this world, even Matsuda. She also told him about a possibility that, if Matsuda could remember Rainier, then there was a high chance that he was also turned into devil as well, since Rias wasn't the only high-class devil in this school. The other high-class devil in Kyo Academy was Sona Shitori, the president of the student council. Her real name was Sona Citri, the heiress of Citri household whose clan was as powerful as Rias's Gremory clan. Her peerage consisted of the entire members of the student council, which were mostly girls. Rias also said he would have a meeting with them soon in the future. Seeing him like this, Sona must reincarnate him into a devil as well. Which piece was it? Issei didn't know, since each evil piece had its own attribute and Matsuda had none, as far as his concern. Issei sat down on his seat and couldn't help but glance to the seat next to him. The place once belonged to Amano Yuma. It felt strange somehow. He only befriended with her for a short amount of time, but Issei already felt sad knowing that Rainier might never come to sit down on that seat while flashing him that cute and warm smile of hers. She was, after all, his first friend and could be the sign that tell him that his life was about to change. He became a devil, a beautiful black wings angel, an even more beautiful and attractive one. Sona and her family ... were now his friends. He lost his humanity, but in turn he gained a lot more, and one of them was his sense of hearing. It wasn't so bad after all. His life changed so much after meeting Rainier. Issei, I'm trying to talk to you, Matsuda cried out and slammed his hand down to Issei's table to gain the brunette attention. Issei only glanced his eyes up and didn't do anything. How rude, Furyu said while pushing her glasses up. When are you going to accept that he is deaf and not someone as low as you are? She asked, and some of the girls in class glared at him while cracking their fist. That is not the point here, Matsuda cried out. What do you want? Issei turned the board around and showed it to Matsuda. The baldy pervert immediately grabbed a pen on Issei's table and hurriedly wrote what he wanted to ask Issei on his board. When he was done, Matsuda turned the board around and showed it to Issei. Do you remember that bitch? Amano Yuma. Sona Kaichu told me that her real name was Rainier. Issei's blood boiled when he read those words and forcefully stood up, grabbing Matsuda's collar and, much to his shock, lifted him up a few inches above the ground. Don't ... call her that. Issei growled and glared coldly at Matsuda. Hey, I'm sorry, all right. Matsuda cried out in panic. Let's me go. It took a while for Issei to realize what he was doing and immediately dropped him. He quickly sat down to his chair and tried to avoid everyone's eyes, which were still staring at him in surprise. Even Issei was surprised by his outburst. But he couldn't help it when Matsuda called Rainier like that. Even if she tried to kill him, Rainier was still his friend, his precious friend. What do you want? Issei showed Matsuda the board again, still glaring at him as if Rias Knight was daring Matsuda to insult Rainier again. Sona Kaichu told me that you became Rias Gremory-sama's servant, Matsuda wrote on the paper and gave it to the fellow devil. Is it true? This time, he was more careful about his words. Yes, what about it? He asked back. So it's true ... you're now a devil too, and with Rias one sama no less. Matsuda made a ridiculous crying face for a second before continuing. I'm pawn. I guess you're a pawn too, right? Wrong, I'm a knight. Issei shook his head and Matsuda gasped in shock. Impossible. The baldy pervert cried out loudly in shock. He accepted to become a servant of Sona Citri after she came to his house and explained everything to him before reincarnating him with a single pawn. He was a mere pawn, while a deaf boy is a knight. How could something like this happen? Unfortunately for Matsuda and luckily for Issei, the teacher arrived and class started. Line break. Eyes, come here please. It was during break time. Issei immediately headed to the old school building to avoid Matsuda and Madohama. The former returned to his normal self as soon as his pervert partner in crime appeared, trying to drag Issei into one of their pervert stuffs. This time it was about a new porn DVD or something like that, featured their idol. With his headphones on, Issei walked into the clubroom and saw Rias smiling at him, patting the spot next to her on the lawn. Issei couldn't help but notice a thin and long object wrapped in crimson cloth lying on the table next to his master. What is it, Butchu? Issei asked and sat down. I got something for you right here. She smiled and picked the object up from the table and gave it to him. Here you go. The boy looked at it for a moment before unwrapping the cloth around the object and revealed it to be a long katana with black scabbard, with an ornate bronze guard. The handle had the traditional wrapping, but it was crimson red instead of gold with black ornaments, while the guard was octagonal. Issei put the cloth down to the table and slightly pulled the sword out of its scabbard to the blade, which featured several intricate ornaments, and the most notable is the crest of the Gremory household at the end point of the hilt. It's a gift from my brother's knight. Rias informed he is Kiba's swordsmaster, the strongest swordsman I know. Wow, he said in amazement. He didn't know much about swords, but he could see that this sword was very well made and the blacksmith must be a professional. The blade looked like it could cut through steel with ease. But you ... you know you don't have to. Like I said, I only want the best for my cute servant. Rias smiled at him. Plus, this is also a gift from a fellow knight. He said ... it would be a disgrace if you refuse it. Issei's sweat dropped at that, so accepted. All right. Thanks, Butchu. Issei smiled and sheathed the sword. Akino will teach you some magic so you can put away and summon the sword every time you want to later. For now she then pulled out a paper. I got your first devil job right here. Issei nodded his head. It's a new client for our business, so I decide to send you to that human. I hope you will accept them as your customer. I will but you. Issei nodded his head. While doing devil jobs, everyone had their frequenters, the ones who frequently asked for devil's service. Issei felt really happy that his first costumer would become his full-time customer. Issei walked to the teleportation magic circle and stood above it. Good luck, Eyes. Rias smiled to him while her Akino prepared to teleport him away to the address written on the request. And remember to be nice to them. Try to think that they are already your friends like us. Rias wisely advised, knowing about his shyness better than anyone. Yes, I will. Issei nodded his head and took a deep breath before being teleported away in a flash of crimson. With a blink of eyes, Issei was no longer in the clubroom and his surrounding was changed from a Victorian-styled room filled with mysterious and magical things to a rather girlish room, letting Issei know that his client was a girl. The walls was painted pink while the ceiling was white in color. The place was rather big and filled with stuffed animals of all kinds and sizes, especially on the pink queen-sized bed with spotless white sheet. This girl must be very rich and love cute stuffs at the same time. There was also a rather large wardrobe at the other side of the room beside the bed and a table near it. Oh, you're here early? Akuma-kun. Issei turned around after hearing her voice as well the sound of a door being opened and saw a girl standing there smiling sweetly at him. His client was a very beautiful girl with blue-green eyes, the same color as Rias Gremory's eyes, and extremely long light pink color hair, which was tied into two large tubes by two flowery hair clips and rest on her shoulder, several long bangs framing her face perfectly. She was wearing the uniform of a local high school at Kyo Town with white stocking and black shoes, and from her appearance Issei could tell that she wasn't much older than he was, as she was only a little taller than him. The girl was also wearing glasses and carried a bag in her hand, probably just got back from school. Though, he couldn't help but admit that she looked oddly familiar. Oh, the devils can magically teleport, so I can come here right away, Issei informed her after realizing that he had been staring at her for too long. This girl wasn't just beautiful, but she was also very attractive, spotting a very large bust and curves at all the right places. I see ... This is my first time making contract with a devil, so ... Well, everything is kind of new to me. I was handed the leaflets yesterday. Before that, I didn't believe that devils like you were actually living among us human. The girl smiled to him. I'm Momo. She offered her hand to him. Issei Hayadu. Issei took it and shook her hand. While doing so, he couldn't help but notice that she was eyeing him curiously. Is there something wrong? No, it's just ... You don't seem to recognize me, do you? She asked with a somewhat hopeful tone. No, miss ... This is the first time I meet you. Issei shook his head and admitted truthfully, though she did look familiar to him. Is that a good thing? Of course, she said cheerily, clapping both of her hands together. What are those things on your ears? She asked curiosity. To her they looked like a normal headphones, but the glowing magical circle beside them told her otherwise. Oh, I'm deaf actually. The smile on Momo's face dropped instantly. These headphones gave me back my sense of hearing by converting the vibrations of sounds and transfer them directly to my brain. At least, that was what my master told me. I see ... You poor thing. Momo nodded her head with a sympathy smile. No worry, Momo-san. Issei grinned. So, what can I start to help you with? Ah yes, devil job, right. Issei nodded his head and Momo continued. By the way, how old are you? She asked curiously. I'm 16. Perfect. You can start with doing my homework for me. Normally I will do it myself, but I have photos. I mean, I'm busy tonight. Issei couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at that, but smiled nonetheless. Since we're the same age, I take that these homeworks should be fine with you. Yes, Momo-san. Issei nodded his head. I will finish them in no time. He would never boast about his knowledge, but Issei was confident about his schoolwork and he was sure that he could handle her homework just fine. Great, I will go take a bath now. You can do them there at my table. Momo handed Issei a bag before heading to her wardrobe. The knight of Rias Gremory walked to Momo's table and sat down, starting to work. Opening the first notebook, Issei could see that Momo have a very good and neat handwritings. Well, let's start to work then, Issei muttered and found her latest homework, which wasn't too hard in his opinion but still very challenging. It didn't take long for finish the first subject, math, and headed to her second subject, physics. Half an hour later, Momo came out of her bathroom, fully dressed in her normal clothes while using a towel to dry her long pink hair, though it took her a while in doing so because her hair was just too long. Picking up a comb, Momo started to gently ran the comb through her hair and silently stood behind Issei to see if he was doing good. To her surprise, he was doing very well. Wow, you're very smart, Momo admitted when she saw the answer of her English's homework. Actually, Momo-san, devils have this language power that let us read, understand, and speak any kind of language. It's actually not that hard. Issei shrugged his shoulders. You're too humble. Momo giggled, and here I thought devils are creature of sins. Maybe in the past, Momo-san, we also have to change to adapt to the world as it is now. Issei explained with a smile. Rias already filled him in the details about the history of devils and already memorized them. It was a very interesting subject to say the least, getting to know about the devils that probably appeared about the same time with mankind. Like devils actually steal the soul of the human who made contract with them after fulfilling their wish. Now, they received a special kind of devil's currency instead, and in his opinion it was less vicious and friendlier than the past. They're done. Issei smiled and closed her last notebook and put it on top of the stack of finished homework and stood up from his seat. Thank you, now I don't have to stay up late again. Momo smiled at him before pulling out a small envelope from the handbag on her bed. Here you go, this is the reward I promised your master. Issei bowed his head and took the envelope. Pretty much it was more or less his first ever pay. Because of his deafness there wasn't many places would accept him even if Issei ever decide to look for a job. Which he probably have to in the near future. Now I know why she spoke so highly about you. You're deaf ... but you know how to overcome your condition, even with or without those headphones. She smiled. Thank you, Momo-san, Issei said gratefully. If anything, Issei would never put it that way. It took him a lot just to stand here and talk normally with his client, but no matter what, as he didn't even know what Rias told Momo about him, he was very thankful that he had a master like Rias Gremory. I will call you later if I ever need your assistance again, Issei-kun, Momo said and sat down, picking up her shoes and start to put them on her foot. I hope we will meet again soon in the future. I hope we will. Issei smiled to her. See you later, Momo-san. He left for the door and left the place. He could call Akino through a mobile device inside his headphones so that she could teleport him back to the Orc Club room. But Issei decided to take a walk first and thought that he shouldn't always bother Rias Queen. Though, he must remove the headphones first before heading into the place that wasn't involved with supernatural things. Line break. It didn't take him long to get to his house's district. It was already 5 in the afternoon, so he should return to his home soon before his family could get worried about him. But when he was about to take a turn, Issei suddenly caught sight of a girl wearing what appeared to be a nun outfit with a white veil on top of the head, carrying a huge luggage that was even bigger than her petite body with her, and seemed like the girl was about to fall over due to its weight. Which she really did, face first down to the ground, and the veil flew away from her head. Issei reacted instantly, and with the speed of a knight, it wasn't hard for him to catch up with the flying cloth and caught it with his hand. When he turned around to check if that girl was alright, Issei couldn't help but sweat dropped when he saw her already on her knees with tearful eyes, her hands holding her forehead. That fall must hurt a lot. Issei then approached the nun and gave her his hand so she could stand up. Oh, why do I keep on tripping over? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. The girl said something, and of course he couldn't hear and took his arms and gently being pulled up by the much stronger boy. Without a word, Issei held out the veil he was holding and gave it back to her. Thank you very much, mister. She smiled brightly. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she gently placed the veil back on her head. Though, a frown then appeared on her face when Issei pointed to his ears while shaking his head. Oh ... you're deaf. The girl then made a sad face. I'm so sorry for being so rude like that. Asia bowed her head to him and made an apologetic face. Issei held out his hand and shook his head with a smile, wanted to tell her that it was alright. Issei then pointed his hand to the luggage she was holding and made a helping sign, though he wasn't sure that she could understand sign language. The girl just looked at him curiosity while tilting her head to the side in confusion. Sighing in defeat, Issei reached into his backpack and pulled out the board. He wrote it in English, since from her appearance he could tell that she was a foreigner. Would you like me to help you carrying that luggage? The girl gasped in surprise and shook her head rapidly, and Issei quickly added, don't worry, it's too heavy for you to carry after all. He smiled at her and the girl looked unsure for a moment before nodding her head. Issei then came over and took the luggage from her hand. With his new devil's strength, it didn't take him much effort to lift it up from the ground and place it on his shoulder. Here, I'm Issei Hayato. What's your name? Issei gave her the board, which she took it and hurriedly wrote her answer on the board. My name is Asia Argento. It's a pleasure to meet you, Issei Hayato. She smiled brightly at him before bowing her head. You must be a resident of this town. Her question made Issei nod his head. Your English is very good. He nodded again. I can't speak Japanese that well. I was lost and other people couldn't understand what I was saying. The nun held her hands together in front of her chest and her face saddened. Issei then pointed his finger to the pen, telling her that he wanted to write something, and Asia gave it back to him, holding the board for Issei while he was writing down his answer. What are you doing here all alone? He questioned. Oh, I was appointed to a local church of this town. I'm a nun, by the way. She smiled cutely at that. Issei made a confused face because as far as his concern, there was only one church in this town and it was abandoned. Rias also warned him to never wander around the place, even after it was abandoned. Holy aura was still lingering around it and it wasn't good for newborn devil like him at all. Why you do? Thank you. This is all thanks to God, she said loudly with her eyes sparked with excitement. Suddenly Asia turned her head to the side when she heard the cry of a boy when they were crossing a park. Issei also already noticed this as well. Are you alright, Yosh-kun? The woman next to the boy asked as she looked at the child. Issei guessed it was the boy's mother and the boy had just tripped over on his feet. Then suddenly, the sister stepped forward and approached the boy with a gentle smile on her face. When she was in front of him, Asia then kneeled down in front of him. Hey, are you okay? Boys shouldn't cry with a minor injury like that. The blonde young nun patted the boy's head gently. Though, Issei could tell that the boy didn't understand what she was saying at all, but thankfully with her kind smile he quietly stopped crying and calming down. His sister then put her palm where the boy had injured himself. Next moment, Issei gasped in shock when a green glowing orb appeared from the nun's palm and was flashing onto the boy's knee and magically making the injured disappear without a trace. Amazing, the knight thought to himself. This must be the power of a sacred gear, the gifts of God to human. The boy's mother was in shock, and Issei really couldn't blame her at all. Anyone who saw unimaginable things like that would have a similar reaction. Here, your wounds are healed. The pain should be gone now. Asia patted the boy's head and turned her head back to look at him. I'm sorry, but I had to, then laughed while sticking her tongue out. The boy's mother, who was shocked before, shook her head, then grabbed the boy's hand so they could leave quickly. Thank you, One-chan, the boy said happily as his mother pulled him away, no doubt afraid of them. That power, he muttered with words, and Asia grabbed his board to write it down for him. Yes, it's the power to heal. It's a wonderful power that God gave me. She looked a little sad while she was showing it to him, even though she was still smiling. Unconsciously, Issei reached for his magical headphones but stopped himself at the last moment. It seemed after using those headphones multi-times, the need to use them to communicate with other people normally still as strong as ever. Moments later, Issei and Asia arrived at the abandoned church, the territory of his enemies. Yes, this is the place. I'm so glad. The blonde nun showed a sign of relief after having compared the location with the map she had. Then I'll be on my way. Issei then put the luggage down to the ground next to her and smiled, taking back his board. He was about to turn away and headed home when suddenly Asia grabbed his wrist. Please wait. I would like to make you some tea as a gratitude for taking me here. She grabbed the pen and wrote that on his board. Oh, don't worry about it. The knight shook his head with a grin. The nun looked troubled. She probably wanted to make Issei some tea to show her gratitude. Sister Asia, let's meet again. He wrote it on the board and showed it to her, at the same time making the let's meet again gesture with his hands. He just hoped that he could communicate with her normally, but he couldn't risk the chance of being seen with headphones like that. She was such a kind and cute girl ... just like how Rainier and Rias to him. He would have to ask Rias about this. Asia bowed her head down and smiled softly at him, standing there, and waited until he completely disappeared from view before heading into the church. Little did he know that this fateful encounter between him and Asia would start his first ever battle in Issei's new life. Eyes, remember, never fight with a drawn sword, unless you truly want to kill your opponent. What the hell do you mean by that, Jai-chan? Issei thought to himself as he raised his undrawn sword to parry Kiba's blade by holding his sword vertically and swiped it to the side to hit the crook of blade neck with his sword's handle, knocking the pawn back a few steps. That's a good move, Eyes-kun. Kiba smiled and created another sword in his hand. This one, however, wasn't normal sword like what Kiba had used to spar with Issei so far. As it was emitting a strong aura of demonic energy, it's time for me to get serious, too. And he charged as Issei. Because the sword Issei was using was also a demonic sword, it could counter against Kiba's sword burst's demonic creation quite easily, but it still didn't change that the blow was a lot stronger. This was the kind of blow that shouldn't be fought against by an undrawn sword. But his grandfather, as he heard from his parents so far, was a very wise man, even though he could be odd most of the time. If his grandfather told him to do something, he must do it without a second thought because there must be a reason behind it, and he told Issei to not use a drawn sword unless he wanted to kill his opponent. This was something Issei could agree on, because with each spar he took with Kiba, Issei had come to remember his style of fighting, which was taught to him by his grandfather, and the old man also confirmed it during the message talk between grandfather and grandson. It was style of undrawn sword, a highly advanced sword style, if didn't want to say the most advanced that wasn't easy to master. A style where he could use the air pressure made when he made a slash, which normally was almost unnoticeable and weak to cut thing as if he was using an actual blade to do it. The point was, Issei didn't know or remember how he could do it, he just did. Since Kiba didn't know about this style, he couldn't answer this question for Issei, and even Kiba's master didn't know how, unless Issei was unconsciously using some kind of energy when he made an attack with an undrawn sword. His grandfather laughed like a maniac when he asked about this and said that if he ever got in a fight, a simple stick could become a deadly weapon against his opponents. What kind of grandfather was that, telling his grandson to cut a few throats if he ever got into a fight? He taught Issei this for self-defense, and another reason that he would like to personally tell him in the near future. It was just that he was too busy right now to answer those questions for Issei. He could cut a bakken with another bakken clean like it was an actual sword. If Issei was holding a real sword in hand, it would hard to imagine how much damage he could cause. Or could he? Issei never tried to unsheath his sword before, even when he was doing light training by himself in his room. Part of him was afraid that he could accidentally cut his table or something like that, or his mother accidentally walked in and saw him holding an actual sword. The only time when Issei got to train for real was after school with Kiba and the Occult Research Club, but even so he still didn't think about unsheath his sword and fought with the scabbard still on. What kind of grandfather would teach his grandson a dangerous fighting style like that? Could it be another thing like martial art for self-defense? Unsheath your sword, Eyes-kun, Kiba said as he landed lightning-fast strikes to Issei. No can do, Kiba. Issei smirked and the two locked blade with each other. He was very thankful that the scabbard was also made from demonic metal. My grandfather told me to never unsheath my sword unless I want to kill my opponent, which I don't. This was some of the times when Issei was truly able to get out of shy shell. As the more he fought, the more he came to enjoy it. He must be a very powerful swordsman to be able to teach you to this level, Kiba admitted. Can't remember much about him, so ... Yeah, I guess Issei suddenly jumped back and made a stance. Here I come. Issei pushed himself forward as hard as he could, charging at Kiba with knight speed, and he was nothing but a blur, way more faster than the pawn himself when he was promoted to knight. Kiba hardened his eyes and also raised his sword and prepared for it. Nukanoteke no kata. As he went past Kiba, Issei dashed his feet on the ground to stop himself. His nadachi already returned to its original spot at the left side of his waist. There was a long moment of silence between the two, and after a second, Issei glanced down a little and saw a long cut on the left sleeve of his jacket, but overall his arm was left unscratched, which was a good thing. Kiba did get him at the last second after all. However, a smile appeared on the knight's face as he turned around and looked at Kiba, who was holding up what was left of his sword while smiling and scratching the back of his head nervously. You got me there again, Eyes-kun. His sword was literally cut, as the blade was no longer there. A metal, demonic sword was cut by an undrawn sword. You got me too. Issei brought his left arm up to show Kiba the cut. Kiba was, indeed, a very skilled swordsman with deadly techniques. Even when he was moving at knight speed, he was still able to raise his weapon to block the strike, even though it didn't turn out well for the Sword Birth Sacred Gear's creation. No worry, Eyes-kun, for someone who trained when he was young and didn't fight for years. You are very good. Kiba smiled and shook hand with Issei as the other members of Occult Research Club approached them. You're going to surpass me, or even my master, really soon, he admitted. Thank for the compliment. Issei knew that he shouldn't feel proud about it or anything, but it felt good having a professional praise you at their own territory. I still have much to learn, the knight said humbly. Did you know that humble and noble are also the trademark attributes of a knight? Rias Gremory said with a smile as she stood next to Issei. Nice work there, Eyes, Yudo. Thank you, but you, Issei and Kiba both said as once, and the pawn made his sword, or what was left of it, disappear. Issei also cast a spell to put his nadachi away into his pocket dimension, the only magic he was taught so far. Akino promised him that she would teach him a lot more magic, even the more advanced one, but it would be later. As a knight you definitely know how to handle a sword already, Rias said before turning to the rest of her peerage. Alright everyone, I think that's enough for today. With a performance like that, I believe that Eyes can finally take on the harder mission with us. She then clicked her finger and a paper appeared within her hand. There is a stray devil roaming in this town, and its current location is at an abandoned factory nearby. We was given an order of eliminating it tonight, so remember to finish your own business before 9 o'clock and gather at the school gate. We cannot let this stray devil running around freely. Yes, but you, everyone said stimulatingly. You all can go now. Rias smiled and they bowed to her before parting away, heading home, or in Issei's case, he was about to head to his client, Momo, to do whatever she asked him to do for her. The pink-haired girl signed a contract with his master, Rias, that she would need Issei's assistance on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. This was weekend, so Issei must be there before 5. He was also very eager to start his second day at work, and Momo was very friendly, unlike some of the others' familiar costumers so far. But first, Butchu, I have something to ask you. Issei quickly caught up to his master before she could leave the school after picking up her bag on a bench nearby. What is it, Eyes? Rias stopped on her track and turned around to look at him. I am wondering if there is any magic that could help me cover the magic circle on these headphones, Issei said, and pointed his finger to the glowing crimson magic circle. After all, he wanted to normally conversation with everyone, not just the ones who were involved in the supernatural world like Rias and the others. Also, because of this magical thing, Issei also couldn't normally talk with his friends if there was human around. Rias could use some memory spell to cover it up, but Issei couldn't risk it. Of course, because there are many illusion spells that can help you with this. Eyes. Rias nodded her head. But don't you think that people, including your family, will question about how can you get such a device like that? Rias said, hearing aid can only provide help for partially deaf people or have problem with hearing while you're completely deaf, as you can no longer hear anything. That kind of thing isn't invented yet anyway. Well, true. Issei nodded his head slowly. He also thought about that, but still hoped that there might be a chance. I'm sorry, Eyes, Rias said to him with a sad smile. No, I'm fine really. Issei immediately shook his head and smiled at her. Don't worry, Eyes, I will definitely figure it out, something to help you in the future. Rias smiled. I promise. I'm sure you will. He couldn't help but smile at that and blushed a little at the smile she was giving him. Line break. Ara, you're always on time, aren't you, Akuma-san? Momo Mamazono smiled widely as she saw Issei Hayato fully appeared from the glowing magic circle manifested on the floor of her apartment. The Knight of Gremory turned his head to look at Momo and smiled at her. The pink-haired girl was sitting in front of a mirror and combing her slightly wet hair from the bath she took earlier. Good afternoon, Momo-san, he greeted formally. How are your day? Gone pretty well. Momo then gave him a thumb up. By the way, good job with my homeworks. I got a full A+ thanks to you. Really? Issei asked in surprise, and I thought I mistook a few things there. Both of them laughed softly at that. How can I help you today, Momo-san? Well, since there is no homework today, you can start with helping me comb my hair. Momo gave him the comb. Are you sure? Rias Gremory-san called you a knight. Momo turned around and looked at Issei through the mirror, putting the comb onto the table, which I don't know why, by the way, but I do believe that you can treat girls like a princess or something like that. Okay then. Issei shrugged and stepped forward, picking the comb up from the table and started to slowly run it on her hair. Her hair was extremely soft and smooth, as if it was made from silk. Issei-kun, how long have you been a devil? Momo spoke up with a question. You're a reincarnated devil, aren't you? She turned around slightly to ask him that question. Yes, Momo-san, in a week, I suppose, Issei said with a frown, remembering about the day he almost died, the day he took that light spear from Rainier for Matsuda. If Matsuda didn't carry Gremory's contract leaflet with him, Issei didn't know what would happen to him. At that time, Issei didn't care much about himself, since he didn't have many friends to begin with. He only cared about his parent and Rainier, even if she was the one who accidentally killed him. You seem to know about the supernatural world a lot, aren't you, Momo-san? He smiled, keeping on running the comb through her hair gently. Mostly from the conversation between me and your master while I was making a contract with her to hire you, the pink-haired girl said, but most of my knowledge about you guys stopped there and with some of my own research. She then smiled while closing her eyes, mostly from the Bible, but let me tell you, they're not describing the devils nowadays. I can see that Issei nodded his head before asking Momo-san, how long have you been aware of the supernatural world? 2 or 3 years ago, I suppose. Issei stopped his comb and looked at her in surprise, but at that time, I didn't pay much attention to it until recently. When I received Rias Gremory-san's leaflet, I realized that all of my suspicions were the truth. The angel, devil, yokai ... they does exist and are living among us human. I didn't know. Issei admitted they're done. Issei smiled and looked at her hair. His mother was the only one who he combed his hair for when he was a lot younger and before that accident. Thank you. Momo smiled and looked at her hair. She then turned her eyes to look at Issei for a moment before saying, hey, how about I show you something? What is it? But you have to promise me that you won't tell anyone, even your master. She smiled mischievously at him, making his curiosity grow. Okay, it's not like she is going to ask. Issei nodded his head. He wasn't the best liar in the world, since he had never told a lie before in his life. Mainly because of his deafness, he couldn't speak very normally. But if Momo wanted to, he could keep it a secret for her. The pink-haired girl then stood up and pushed Issei down her chair, starting to fold up the left sleeve of her shirt, and said, 3 years ago, I was awakened from my sleep by a voice in my head. She quickly added before Issei could say anything, no, I'm not crazy, Issei-kun. There is actually a voice in my head, telling me it's time for the Red Dragon Emperor to rise again. The Red Dragon Emperor? Issei asked in shock. Yeah, he said, Sekryute or something like that. Hey, that voice was probably a male. Momo nodded her head, folding her sleeve just above her elbow before raising her hand. He also told me the magic circle on the leaflet was a magical one. I didn't believe it at first, but when you woke up in the morning with a voice in your head and this. Issei then widened his eyes in shock when Momo's arm started to shine in green light before a large blue gem started to materialize at the back of her hand. From there, red metal pieces of a large red dragon-like gauntlet with 2 golden spikes manifested on your arm. Amazing, Issei muttered in shock and stood up to have a better look at the gauntlet. This must be a sacred gear. Sacred gear. God's artifacts. They are items with powerful abilities bestowed upon humans by the original God from the Bible. Issei nodded his head. He didn't know much about sacred gears, but it was the only explanation for this, since Momo was a normal human. Momo-san, you're a sacred gear possessor. Is that a good thing? Momo asked, and since when an item can talk. To tell you the truth, I still don't know much about sacred gears. He then said, but I will try to find out something about it for you. Oh, thank you, Issei-kun. Momo giggled, and in a flash, the dragon-like gauntlet disappeared. Do you know about its ability, though? Other than the fact that the scales are pretty hard and I have sharp claws ... Nah, I don't. Momo shook her head. Okay then, dragon-like gauntlet. At least I know what to find now. Issei nodded his head with a smile before checking his clock. Oh, it is 6:30 already. He said out loud, sorry Momo-san, I have a mission tonight with everyone. I will have to take my leave now. He walked to his backpack and picked it up, throwing the thing on his shoulder. Nah, don't worry, you already finished your job for the night. Momo smiled to him. Next time, I will definitely return with the answer for you. Momo-san. Issei smiled before taking his leave. Line break. The devil, those who was turned into a servant devil of a high-class devil with a peerage but who betrayed or killed its master. Cases like that rarely occur, but it did happen every day. The power of devils, compared to the normal human, was enormous, as one could never compare it to the time when you were a human, so there would be those who was blinded by this and chose to use that power for their own self-interests. Those devils would leave their master's place and cause destruction at different locations. That was a stray devil. In other words, a stray dog. But wasn't just any normal stray dog, they were stray rabid dog and always caused troubles. When found, the master or the other devils were ordered to eliminate them. Simply, that was the law of the devils. Other beings such as angels and fallen angels would see them as threats, and they would definitely eliminate the stray devils whenever found. There was nothing scarier than a devil who does not abide by any rule. Issei went to the unused building located at the outer part of the town along with his master and his fellow servant of Rias Gremory. Every night, this stray devil was luring humans to the building to feed on them. Issei's handle on his sword tightened when he thought about the children that were eaten by this stray devil. Surprisingly enough, Issei didn't feel nervous when he knew that he was about to kill a living being, one who used to be just like him. There was a request from the high-class devil to hunt it down. Apparently, this was also one of the jobs of a devil. It was nearly midnight, so most people already went to sleep at this timing, so they would have to keep it as quiet as possible. This was the world of darkness, but thanks to his devil's trait, he could have a very clear view of his surroundings and the abandoned building. Smell of blood. Kaneko covered her nose with her uniform after she says that, but Issei also said something at the same time. Bloodlust, the knight said before turning his eyes to look at Kaneko, who looked at him with her usual blank expression but nodded her head to agree with him. He couldn't quite explain it, but he felt some kind of sick and creepy aura radiating around the place and coming from the building, so the only explanation was the bloodlust of that stray devil. You can feel it. Issei nodded at Ria's question. That's a good thing. She smiled and patted his shoulder before walking ahead. When they stepped into the building becomes quiet. Issei could feel the presence of an enemy nearby, and its intent to kill them wasn't normal. Issei's body was shaking, but not because he was scared. It was because he was about to experience a real battle. So far, all of his fights were against Kiba and they were all friendly spars. This would be his first ever battle and he couldn't help but feel some abnormal excitement swelling inside of him. Was this a good thing? To feel excited when you were about to kill something? Issei had to wonder it out loud from the deep of his mind. He was wrong, somehow, but he couldn't help but smile slightly and put his other hand on the handle of his Nudachi. Just what was he thinking anyway? You okay, Issei? Rias asked. For a second she swore she saw a rather bloodthirsty smile on Issei's face, which was very abnormal for the usual gentle and calm boy, but decided that it was just her imagination. Yeah, but I'm fine. Issei nodded his head and changed his sword-holding style, now holding it by its handle and ready for battle. I'm ready. Good, this is a good opportunity to experience what it's like to fight for real. Rias nodded her head with a smile. Normally, we will fight together, but tonight I think this is a great opportunity to witness what you're truly capable of in a real battle. Let's test your skills here. Alright, but she immediately added before he could say anything, but we will immediately step in if things turn bad, understand? Yes, but Issei nodded his head and took a deep breath. Unknown to them all, Akino was currently looking at Issei with an observing eyes. She couldn't place it, but before Rias started talking with him she swore that she felt something from the night. She was, after all, masking her sadistic personality with a calm and gentle expression, so she would definitely realize someone like her if she saw them. Thing was, she always thought Issei was a deaf boy who always wore a somewhat sad smile on his face, but after that feeling she could no longer tell if he was a calm and noble knight or not. Maybe it was just her imagination. Since the place was filled with bloodlust, a newborn devil like him must be affected somehow. But so far, Issei had proved to be a quite skilled fighter, so there was no way he could get affected by this weak bloodlust. It's here. Issei couldn't agree more and nod his head. I could feel it coming from a farther disdain. Thanks to the presence of the enemy, and its intent to kill became a whole lot stronger. I can smell something disgusting. But I can also smell something delicious. Is it sweet? Or is it sour? They could hear a low voice, which was coming from below the ground. Stray devil Vaser, we are here to eliminate you, Rias said loudly and strongly. The abnormal laughter echoed around them. That was no laugh of a human being. It was the laugh of a monster. And JJ, a topless woman appeared from the shadow. At first Issei thought this stray devil would take on the form of a very tall woman, but the heavy footsteps told him otherwise. The next thing about Vaser that appeared was the lower body of a gigantic beast. It was a grotesque being with an unnatural form having a woman's upper body and the lower body of a monster holding 2 spears in its hand. The lower body of the monster had 4 fat legs with sharp claws, and it also had a snake tail. From the size of it, it was definitely more than 5 meters tall. Leaving your master's side and rampaging as you please definitely deserve death. In the name of Duke Gremory, I will gladly eliminate you. You are cunning for a little girl. I will rip your body and color it in red just like your hair. The monster barked, but Rias made a fearless laugh. Grunts sure do speak in a stylish manner. She then glanced to the boy standing next to her eyes. Yes, Issei sprinted ahead as soon as Rias' order was given. In just a blink he was already in front of them. This is my knight, and he will be your opponent tonight. Rias put a hand on Issei's shoulder and said to the stray devil, hopefully, you can take care of him, she said mockingly, and let Issei step forward, making the stray devil become a lot angrier, and attacked Issei with its spears. But much to everyone's amazement, Issei simply rose his still undrawn sword to block Vaser's spear, as if the attack was weightless. Issei must have a rather strong spiritual energy to block it flawless like that. Rias said that sword, after all, is no ordinary demonic sword. It has the power to absorb some of the user's spiritual energy to harden itself, making it almost unbreakable. Rias smiled. Not only that, when it reached a certain amount of energy, a red barrier then suddenly appeared around the scabbard of Issei's sword, and it knocked Vaser's spears back. The scabbard have the power to bounce back the attacker's weapon when blocked. Master know about Issei undrawn style, so he specially chose this weapon for him. Kiba nodded his head. It's very effective and can be extremely deadly in an undrawn swordsmaster. Just like Rias' word, Kiba's speech, when Vaser attacked again, Issei raised his sword with one hand gripping the handle tightly, and the other was put on the black scabbard, blocking the spears effortlessly by swatting them to the sides. This, however, also covers some of Knight's weaknesses over powerful strength opponent. Kiba explained. Before the stray could take his spears back, Issei already charged forward with speed that made him nothing but a blur, his sword brought back in one of his undrawn style. Within seconds, Issei's speed increased threefold, reaching the ultimate speed that could no longer followed by normal, untrained eyes. Next moment, the scream of the monster echoed. As its right arm were cut from its torso along with the spear. Blood gushed out of its wound. Issei reappeared underneath the stray with the scabbard of his sword tainted in blood. A sharp, extremely clean cut with an undrawn sword. Stump. The beast tried to stomp on Issei with its gigantic front limb, but Issei easily dodged it by moving out of the way and ran at the nearest wall fast enough to run up on the vertical surface before stopping when he reached the monster height, bending his knees before pushing his feet onto the hard surface, launching himself toward the stray while twisting his body around. Its last arm was separated from its body less than a blink of an eye. "That's enough, eyes," Rias said with a satisfied smile. "You can leave the rest." But a frown appeared on her face when Issei reappeared on the opposite wall with his bangs shadowed his eyes, with his lips forming into a strange, cruel smile. He was enjoying this thrill, this excitement, his entire body was being shaken by them as his left hand moving on the scabbard that coated in the stray's warm blood. "I will kill him," his cold, chilling voice sent shiver down everyone's spine. He made the same movement like before and grabbed the handle tightly, launching himself toward the stray while slowly unsheathing his sword. Ironically enough, the blade was glinting and some kind of aura was being released from inside of the scabbard. He was aiming for the head. "Eyes, that's enough," Rias cried out. At the very moment, a sharp pain shot through his entire body, coming from the scars on the right side of his body, snapping the knight out of his state. "Eyes, remember, never fight with a drawn sword, unless you truly want to kill your opponent." His grandfather's voice echoed within his head and Issei resheathed his sword at the last moment, but somehow, he still managed to put a deep gash on the stray devil, going all the way from its right shoulder to its left hip, making a massive amount of blood to shot out of it. Issei's feet touched the ground and he turned around a little to look at everyone, the left side of his face filled with the monster's red blood. "Akino, you guys finish it," Rias ordered, and her queen, along with the pawn and the rook, stepped forward to end the stray devil's life. Rias, however, grabbed Issei's wrist and pulled him out of the area. "Oi, but you, what's wrong?" Issei asked in confusion when they were outside of the building. But Issei could still hear the scream of the monster as well as the sound of lightning striking violently. "What's wrong?" Rias asked in shock. "Are you really asking me that? What happened back there, Eyes? That wasn't you. What are you talking about but you?" She glared at for a long second. "Okay, I might overdid it a bit, but didn't we come here to take that stray devil down?" "Yes, we came here to kill that thing, but you're enjoying it." "Akino-san is enjoying it." The knight pointed her hand to the factory, where a sadistic laugh could be heard. "But that is how she is, not you." Rias shook her head. "Eyes, for a single second back there, I couldn't recognize you at all." Her voice softened. "Tell me, what happened?" "I don't know but you," Issei admitted truthfully. He didn't know what had gotten to them back there, but all he could feel was the excitement of experiencing the first real battle in his life. He wasn't even hesitating to end that stray devil's life. For a newbie like him, this definitely wasn't normal. "I see." Rias nodded her head, deciding that she shouldn't push this matter anymore and would let Issei tell her when he wanted to. With a snap of her fingers, Rias summoned a wet towel into her hand and started to wipe the blood from here. "Let me help you," she smiled, and Issei closed his left eye so Rias could freely clean his face for him. "Promise me you won't get yourself in that, force yourself like that again, all right?" "Yes, but you." Issei could only nod his head with a small smile. Even though his magical headphones were well, magical, most of its parts were machine, and just like any machines in this world, they still needed daily maintenance to function properly. Sitting on his chair with his headphones' tiny accessories on the table in front of him, Issei carefully used a clean cloth to clean a very small truckle he was holding with tweezers, making sure that he wouldn't miss any place, even the smallest ones. The accessories Issei had removed from his headphones were all removable as there were more, smaller electronic parts within them. He didn't want to accidentally break his headphones, and since he wasn't a mechanic, Issei didn't want to test his luck. But for those parts, Issei could use an empty sprayer to blow the dirt inside away. As Issei was maintaining his hearing aid, he couldn't help but think about the night 3 days ago, when he mercilessly cut down stray devil Vaser's limbs as if it was the simplest thing in the world. Sure, they came there to eliminate that stray devils, and Akino did show him anything but mercy before ending his life the best way her sadistic personality could come up with. But now that he could finally sit down and rethink about what happened that night, he couldn't help but feel something was definitely not right with him. Issei had never killed any living beings before. Of course, he wasn't a saint because he did end a few bugs and some cockroaches' life because they sneaked into his room in the night. But a being like Vaser, who formerly a devil like him, never, and yet he was ready to end its life like he had done it multi-times before. Like what his master said, it just wasn't him and it felt wrong, somehow. Did he have an inner, sadistic personality like Akino? If he really had one, he should know about it, right? That night, Issei clearly showed a side of himself that no one had seen before. Even Issei was shocked after his head cooled down. All he felt at that time were excitement and the feeling of adrenaline pumping strongly within his body, not just his mind. His grandfather should know something about this, since the man was the one who taught him how to fight. However, he couldn't just go around and text him something like, "Hey Jai-chan, I got in a fight with a stray devil and I wanted nothing more than behead it, cool. Did I show any bloodthirsty personality when I was young?" That would be outright ridiculous, and only when his grandfather was crazy he would believe him. Sighing longingly, Issei then put the cloth down to the table and started to put his headphones back together before putting them to his ears, pressing the button on the right one to activate both of them. A small smile appeared on his face when he could hear the sounds of everything around him again, as well as his parents' voice talking with each other downstairs. Standing up and walked to the window, Issei opened it and shot out of his room to the rooftop of the house in front of him, landing softly on the surface before starting to run at night speed, making it almost impossible to see him with the normal eyes. Even when the people at the street below accidentally look up, their eyes would never be able to catch up to him. He was heading to Momo's house to do yet another job request for her, as he would definitely arrive at her house sooner than usual. Today he was going to head to his second client of his devil's life, and unfortunately his meeting time would be at 6 in the evening. He wasn't going to be a familiar customer like his pink-haired client, so hopefully this would be a one-time thing and Momo could understand for him arriving at her house an hour sooner than usual to do his devil job. It didn't take him long to arrive at her apartment and got inside through her window. Issei always wondered why Momo lived along in Kyoto Town like this, as a beautiful and attractive girl like her could easily become a target of perverts and thieves alike. But as far as he knew, she had been living here for years and nothing happened, so he knew that Momo could at least handle her own rather well. Her parent wasn't living with her though. They lived in a different town of Japan and always away from business. The reason why she moved here and lived alone like this was unknown to him. "Momo-san, I'm here." Issei looked around and saw her shoes on the shoes rack, realizing that she was home but couldn't see her anywhere. But he did hear the sound of water pouring down to the floor from a shower. "Issei-kun, is that you?" Issei turned around and saw the door of the bathroom was open just a little for Momo to peek her eyes out to look at her. "Guess you came early, didn't you? What time is it?" Clearly she was taking a bath again. This girl must really love to bath, because every time Issei arrived at her house, her hair was wet from taking a shower. "It's 4 p.m., Momo-san," Issei answered. 4? Isn't that too early?" There was the sound of the shower being turned off. "Sorry for coming early, but I have a request from another client tonight at 6, so I'm hoping that you can let me start my work today an hour sooner than usual." "Don't worry, Issei-kun, of course you can," Momo said before opening the door of her bathroom again and pointed to a bathrobe hanging outside. "Can you get me the bathrobe?" "Of course." Issei immediately walked over and took it away from the hanger and gave it to her. Issei then waited patiently, and not a minute later, Momo stepped out of the bathroom, the bathrobe wrapped around her body, just enough to cover a little more than a half of her large breasts. Being a gentleman, a knight to be exact, Issei wisely turned away, but he did catch the sight of the top of her bountiful breasts, which seemed like it was about to spill out from the bathrobe. The bathrobe was also rather short, stopping just above her mid-thighs, showing off her impressive toned legs that was clearly trained. "Oh, such a gentleman, aren't you?" Momo giggled and nearly forget that you're a knight. She then sat down to the chair in front of her mirror and smiled. "Don't worry though, it's healthy for teenage boys to stare. Plus, it also proved that I'm beautiful and sexy, aren't I?" Yeah, kind of." He then added quickly to answer her last question, "And of course you're beautiful, Momo-san." "Ara, thanks a lot, Issei-kun," Momo giggled before saying, "Can you comb my hair today as well?" But before he could take a step, Momo pulled out a hairdryer from her drawer and gave it to him. "But we need to dry my hair first." "Ah yes, of course, Momo-san." Issei nodded his head and walked over to take the hairdryer from his client, activating it by pushing the button on the handle before turning it around and let the hot, strong air slowly drying her slightly wet pink hair, as his fingers also running through her silky lock to make sure that she would be completely dried. "I'm sorry, Momo-san, but I'm still not finding out anything about your sacred gear yet." "Oh, don't worry, Issei-kun, there is no need to rush." The pink-haired young woman smiled softly to him. "It isn't like I will need it for anything, was it?" "Of course, Momo-san." Issei nodded his head with a smile. "Hey, Issei-kun, do you have a girlfriend?" The knight dropped the hairdryer onto Momo's head after hearing that question. He quickly caught it though, before it could touch the ground, but the impact with Momo's head had been made. "Ouch!" Momo groaned out in pain and held her head with her hands. "There is no need to react like that, you know," Momo said while gently massaging the spot. Sorry, Momo-san, I was just ... well, surprised by your question," Issei said apologetically. "So, do you have or not?" Momo asked again, feeling the pain go away. "No, I don't, Momo-san." "Are there any girls you like?" Momo asked, and Issei became a little silent at that. He also didn't react to her question like before, allowing Momo to know his answer without him telling her. "Well, shame though, I won't mind dating a guy like you." "Guy like me?" Issei asked with embarrassed smile. "Momo-san, I'm not that great." "Well, tell you, it's hard to find a decent boyfriend nowadays, especially a boyfriend with a personality like you." Momo then pointed to her hair. "Lets me ask you, how many guys out there willing to do simple things like drying and combing their girlfriend's hair, and even doing a very good job at that? And don't tell me that this is because of your devil's job." "I don't know, really, Momo-san." Issei shook his head with a smile, really paying that much thoughts to these kinds of things. "That girl doesn't know how lucky she is, Issei-kun." Momo smiled to him. "It's really not my place to tell you to, but if you really like her, then make sure to make her your girlfriend. You truly deserve someone good." and she didn't say anything more after that. She just closed her eyes and let Issei ran the comb through her hair. With the knight, he didn't know what to think about it, because this whole love thing was actually new to him. Before becoming Rias' servant, Issei didn't think that someone unsocial like him could find a girlfriend, especially one like Rias Gremory, his master. His crush for her was unchanging, even growing stronger with how much she cared for him and how much she changed his life. But girls like Rias was way out of his league. He didn't even know if Rias would look at him more than a family member, since Gremory's affection for her servants was exceptional from what he heard from Kiba. Even if he managed to get her look at him more than that, he didn't know if her family, who was one of the most powerful household of the underworld, not to mention her brother being the Mau Lucifer himself, would accept him who wasn't normal in the first place. Line break. It was late at night and Issei was heading to a particular house by jumping from rooftop to rooftop as fast as he could. If Momo didn't ask him to give her a shoulders massage while she was watching a Kamen Rider Drives episode show on TV, then Issei wouldn't have to run like this. He was 30 minutes late already, and by the time he got there his client was going to so mad at him. But Momo was clearly a big Kamen Riders fan. Issei could see the excitement in her eyes, and every time the hero of the series, Shinosuke Tamari or any other Kamen Riders transformed, she would abruptly stand up much to his surprise and start to mimic the stances before saying henshin without caring that he was standing right behind her. Though, Issei found it cute when she did so. As soon as Issei put his feet down the entrance of his client's house, he immediately knew that something wasn't right. The entrance door was slightly open and there was a small amount of killing intent within the house. His sword was within his hand in a second as he was more than ready to fight. Slowly, with his free hand, Issei pushed the door open and looked inside the house. There were no lights in the hallway, but there was only one room at the end of the first floor with some faint lights on. Without hesitation, Issei took off his shoes and walked into the house without making a sound. He then looked into that room from the door that was slightly opened, and realized that the brightness was due to the candles. It's a living room and there is a television, a sofa, a table, and such. A very ordinary living room. His eyes were then glued to the wall. What in the? Issei whispered in shock. There was a corpse nailed to the wall, attached to it with big and thick screws screwed into the palm of each hand, into the feet, and at the middle of its torso, making the shape of a cross. It was upside down and had been cut viciously, and there was something that looked like a giblet was coming out from the wounds. This wasn't normal. Not normal at all. There was also a puddle of blood on the floor from the drips of blood falling from the corpse, and also words written on the wall with blood. It's written as punishment for those who did bad deeds. I just borrowed the sentence from someone important. Suddenly Issei heard a voice of a young male came from behind him. Though, the Knight of Rias Gremory showed no surprise. You're the one who did this, aren't you? He asked quietly. When he turned around, there was a man having the appearance of a young teenager with white hair with foreign look. He was also dressing up like a priest. Well, if it isn't a devil kun. Seeing Issei, the priest made an evil smile and seemed to be really happy. Oh, you have a sword too. Ready to fight me? Nope, because you won't stand a chance. Who are you? Issei asked coldly, his blood boiling within him. You don't go around killing people cruelly like this and laugh about it like it was nothing. I'm a priest, a boy priest. I cut down devil-like people, and I laugh at them. I cut the head of you devils, and receive my meal. The priest started to sing. Don't joke with me, bastard, Issei cursed out and pointed his sword at the priest. My name is Fried Zelzen. I belong to a certain exorcism organization. Just because I introduced myself doesn't mean you have to. I don't want to remember your name in my memory, so please don't. It's okay, since you are going to die soon. I will make sure of it. It might hurt at first, but later you will feel so good that you will cry. Now let's open the new door. Z. Clearly his words didn't make any sense to Issei. Was it you, the one who killed this person? Issei asked, glaring at the priest. Yes, I killed him. Because he was a regular criminal who has been summoning devils, so I had to kill him. Fried laughed maniacally. Are you shocked? Aren't you running away? That's weird. Really weird. I mean, humans who make a pact with devils are scum. Scum indeed. Can't you understand that? No, is that so? Well, you are a scum devil after all. How can a human kill another human? He asked with frustration clearly in his voice. Aren't you only supposed to kill us, devils? What the fuck is that? A mere devil like you is lecturing me. I will laugh at this. You probably could get a reward for being funny. Okay then, listen carefully, you shitty devil. Devils also use humans' greed to survive. Relying on a devil proves that you are no longer a human. It's the end. That's why I killed him. I make a living by killing devils and those that are contracted to a devil. That's my job. Even that stray devil didn't go this far. The knight scolded under his breath. What are you talking about? Devils are trash. Do you know they are a shitty existence? Do you know this is common sense? Didn't you know? Seriously, you should start your life back from a toddler. Wait, it's useless to tell this to a reincarnated devil like you. More like, I have to kill you. It's awesome, isn't it? It's the best, isn't it? Fried then pulled out a sword that had no blade and a gun. There was a sound vibrated in the air and a light blade started to form from the handle. Perhaps it was a lightsaber like that movie Star Wars. But Fried was clearly no Jedi. You kind of irritate me, so can I cut you? Can I shoot you? Is it okay? Okay then. Now I'm going to stab your heart with this blade of light, and I'm going to blow your head with this cool-looking gun. Man, I'm seriously going to fall in love. The priest came sprinting towards him with a smirk on his face. He raised the gun and shot it, but Issei simply raised his sword with his hand still holding its scabbard and blocked the incoming bullet before taking a stance, with movements Fried couldn't follow. Fried slashed his blade at Issei but then found the knight already behind him with a emotionless gaze in his eyes. Noisy little shit. For the first time in his life, Issei cursed and wiped the blood on his scabbard with the priest cape, which he pulled it away from Fried's shoulder. Disgusting. He muttered and walked forward, just as Fried dropped down to his knees. "Gah!" Fried cried out in pain as his right arm was separated from his shoulder and dropped down to the ground hopelessly, blood flowing out of his mouth due to a massive gash from his left shoulder to his right hip. "Damn you!" The priest cried out and turned around to unload a wave of bullets at Issei. But much to his shock, Issei turned around so fast that after image was created, and he used his sword to dodge all bullets without so much of effort. "I hope but you won't get mad just because I killed a stray exorcist," Issei whispered with a dark smirk, blocking Fried's last bullet and walked toward him. Fried stared at Issei in shock and horror because right at that moment, he could see a giant shadow behind Issei, taking the form of something with 9 heads. His body completely froze, as if a giant snake just wrapped itself around his body and completely immobile him. "Please stop." Issei's bloodlust instantly disappeared when he heard that unfamiliar voice, but the presence was very familiar. He snapped his head aside and saw the blonde sister he met a few days ago standing right there with shock. "Asia?" he asked in shock. "Heal me," Fried cried out and tried to crawl to her, but Issei stabbed his sword down to stop him. "Get away from her, you scum," Issei said. "Enu," Asia screamed out after seeing the corpse that was nailed to the wall. "No," she whispered with tears falling from her eyes. Her eyes then turned to look at them and got shocked to see him. "Father Fried, Issei-san," she whispered, looking at him directly. "That shit is a dev." But his scream was muffled when Issei delivered a kick to his mouth, sending him across the room. "Shut your mouth, asshole." It felt good, yes, delivering the kick to that freak face. He knew that it was wrong to take pleasure from doing so, but for now he didn't think much about it. He then quickly turned to Asia. "Asia, I san is a devil." She seemed to be shocked to find out the truth. "Why? Your ears. These things help me with my hearing, Asia," Issei said and pointed to his headphones. "Yes, I'm a devil," he admitted without hesitation. Fried laughed maniacally and got to his knees with one hand holding his bleeding shoulder. "Devils and humans can never coexist, especially humans from the church, and the devils are the biggest enemies. Also, we are a group of heretics that was deserted by God. Asia Tan and I are humans that can't survive without the support of that fallen angel Sama." "Fallen angel?" Issei widened his eyes in shock. Was he talking about Rainier? Issei thought in his head. No, that not be it. He knew that the stray devil like Fried had to realize on fallen angels to continue to live and work to earn their living. But there was no way Rainier would harbor scum like this. Asia, he could understand, but Fried. Wait, why did Asia, a nun who was a god's follower, had to follow a fallen angel? Issei's head suddenly snapped to the side when heard the clicking sound of Fried's gun. Though with an injury like that he couldn't aim very well, and the bullet missed his head for only a few inches, as Issei simply moved his head to the side and let it pass harmlessly. "Out of armor, eh?" Issei asked. "Shut your mouth, you filthy devil." Fried picked up his sword. "I will kill you." "Very well. It is you who want to turn this place into a bloodbath," Issei said, and reached his other hand for the handle of his sword. This time, he would fight for real. However, before he could make any move, the blonde sister suddenly walked between him and Fried, with her arms spread as if she was protecting him. "Asia, what are you doing?" Issei asked and looked at the nun in the eyes. "Issei-san, please, he already has enough," she said with tears in her eyes, her legs shaking. Issei became speechless after hearing her words. "Asia, are you serious? Look at what he did to that person. Are you really thinking that I will simply let this pass?" he asked, and Asia looked troubled. "I know, but I also don't want Issei-san to kill Father Fried either. It's wrong, even if you're devil." Asia shook her head. "Please, I beg of you, Ai-san, stop this madness." She then turned around and looked at Fried. "There are good people, even among devils," she said, with a small smile on her face. "Don't talk shit, bitch. You also learned that devils are trash at the church. Seriously, is there something wrong with your brain?" Fried cried out. "There aren't any shitty devil like that, what? That's what I thought until recently. But Issei-san is a good person with good heart. That fact doesn't change even after I found out that he is a devil. Killing someone is unforgivable. This kind of act, God won't allow such acts." Issei looked at her strangely before removing his hand from his Nadacha's handle and stood straight up. Those were strong words, even for a girl like Asia, who just saw a corpse and found out that the deaf boy who helped her was actually a devil, her archenemy. After all that, she still thought about him as a good person, even if he was a devil. Flash. Then suddenly, a magic circle that appeared on the floor shone, bearing the crest of the Gremory household. A group of devils then appeared from the teleportation magic circle. It was Rias Gremory and her servants. "Issei-kun, we came to rescue." Kiba smiled at his fellow swordsman but then frowned when he saw the state Fried was in a "I guess you don't need our help then." He smiled while scratching the back of his head. This is awful." Akino giggled when she found the arm on the ground. "What a bloodbath here, Aiz-kun." Is it wrong for me to get turned on by what you are doing here? She giggled and Issei could only look at her with a what the fuck look. Priest, Taniko said curtly, looking at the priest with emotionless eyes. TCH, more shitty devils. What are you guys? Devil Squadron? The Devil Rangers. What a vulgar mouth. It's hard to believe you are a priest. Oh, that's why you are a stray exorcist? Right. Rias said simply with a flick to her hair. She then turned to him and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I never expected that a stray exorcist will visit this client's house. She then glanced down at the arm, but it seems you're handling him very well. Rias nodded her head. Once again she found the other side of Issei very dangerous. That stray devil was another point, but if he could separate a human's arm and put a deep cut like that on his body without showing any hesitate, which she doubted he was, it seemed he was more than ready to kill the priest. It was lucky for her that he was only like this whenever he was fighting. Eyes, did you get wounded? She then looked at Issei and checked for any injuries, but she found none. I'm alright, but you, don't worry. Issei shook his head. As expected from my night, Rias said with a satisfied smile before turning to Fried, who was about to pass out due to blood lost. Issei found it actually hard to believe he could still stay awake after losing that much blood all this time. Looks like you have been looking after my cute servant, Priest-san. And she wasn't even trying to hide the mocking expression on her face. Fuck you and your shitty deaf servant then. Bond, a section of the furniture behind the priest was completely blown away. Now, a lowlife like you shouldn't talk about me and my cute servant that way, Rias said with her hands raised, or I will blow your head away faster than my knight chopped away your hand, with an unsheathed sword no less. Her intensity caused the atmosphere to feel frozen. But there seems to be few fallen angels heading to this house. Aquino then detected the presence of 4 fallen angels and informed them. Issei was confused. Fallen angels. So Rainer wasn't the only fallen angel who was in this town. Rias then gave another stare at the priest before telling her queen. Aquino, we will return to our headquarters once we retrieve eyes. Prepare for teleportation. Yes. Aquino nodded her head and started to cast a spell as soon as Rias urged her to. Realizing that he was about to leave, Issei pointed to Asia. But we are taking Asia with us as well. Issei said it to his master very clearly. It's impossible. Only devils can use the magic circle to transport. Also, this magic circle can only teleport me and my servants. Rias shook her head. Then I will. Issei was about to tell her that he could take Asia out of here with his speed alone, but he suddenly found a light tug on his sleeve and turned to look at the blonde nun Asia. Ai-san, let's meet again. That was the last words they exchanged at the place. Next moment, Aquino finished casting the spell and the magic circle on the floor started to glow again. Like hell, I'm going to let you escape. There was a group of priests, wearing the same outfit as Fried, busted into the house and charged at them, while firing their guns at the group of devils. Issei and Kiba wasted no time to step forward and made themselves and their swords, with Issei's Nadachi still unsheathed as a shield for the girls, blocking all light bullets flawlessly until they were completely teleported away. Line break. Issei skipped school today and he was currently sitting cross-legged on top of an electric pole with a box of bento in his hand. It was rare for him to skip school like this, but Issei couldn't sit tight in a classroom when he found out that there was a group of psycho stray exorcists out there killing innocent people just because they made contract with devils to help them with their life. Rias said even if they were stray exorcists, there weren't many of them as crazy as Fried, so he didn't need to worry about it too much. But still, Issei decided to skip school this morning to go to Momo's house and started to follow her everywhere she go, making sure that no stray exorcists would try their chance killing her. No, Issei wouldn't call himself a stalker, just a silent protector. Though, he had to wonder why Momo had to style her hair different like that as well as put on glasses. She never did them whenever she was in her apartment and her eyes were perfectly fine as well. The school she went to was an ordinary school, and as soon as Momo stepped into the school ground, Issei knew that she would be perfectly safe. The stray exorcists wouldn't try to do anything risky when she was there. Issei was about to leave when suddenly he saw a very familiar figure walking into the park nearby. Line break. Oh, Asia looked at the menu in her hand, looking very confused as she didn't know what to order. The blonde had never seen or heard about such food like this before. Issei was waiting on the seat in front of her with his head leaned against the palm of his hand, hiding the magic circle beside his right headphone from view. What would you like to order? The employee asked in nervousness. She didn't know how to handle this situation. It was lunchtime already and Issei had taken Asia to a fast food restaurant at the business district, a place that he had never come before. Issei couldn't believe that Asia had never come to this kind of place before and she was having a hard time choosing her meal. Even a normal person could understand how order a meal work. Issei had offered his help, but she only replied proudly, "It's fine, I will manage it somehow." And so, she kept wondering what to choose, and the fact that she didn't know how to speak Japanese seemed to make things more difficult to the nun. She will have the same order as me. He didn't feel hungry much since Issei just got his lunch a few minutes ago, but he did order for himself a hamburger and a cup of water. Okay. The employee took the order and walked away. Oh, I'm ashamed. I can't even buy a single hamburger by myself, Asia said with a down expression. Don't worry, Issei said, making Asia looked at him in confusion. All you need to do is get used to Japanese, then you can order whatever you want. Right, Asia nodded her head rapidly at that. The food soon arrived and Issei was about to grab his hamburger, but stopped when he saw Asia was taking a really good look at the hamburger and wasn't eating at all. Rather, she was wondering how to eat it. "You don't like them?" Issei asked. He could see that she liked the burger but didn't know how to eat. So after making sure that no one was looking, Issei stood up from his seat and picked up the burger, showing Asia the way to enjoy a hamburger here. "You can eat it by taking the wrap off like this." Issei opened the paper wrap before giving the hamburger to Asia. "No need for spoon or anything, just use your hands." There's actually a way to eat like that. Amazing. Issei nodded his head as Asia gently took the food from him. "Try it." "Why yes." Asia nodded her head before took a small bite of the burger and started eating it. Delicious. "This burger is very delicious. I am glad that you like it." Issei grinned at Asia, whose eyes were shining with excitement, before asking, "You never had a burger before?" Issei asked. "No, I have seen it often on television, but it's my first time eating it." "I'm moved. It's delicious." "Oh, so what do you normally eat?" "Mainly bread and soup. I also eat vegetable and pasta food." "I see." Issei nodded his head. "Then eat it carefully so you remember the taste." "Okay. Yes, I will eat it with joy." Asia started eating it deliciously. The two then started to talk, with Issei being the one who questioned and Asia the one who answered every question truthfully. He was relieved to find that the exorcist didn't do anything to her as long as she used her power to cure Freed, which Issei wasn't pleased about it one bit. He was also very surprised to find that Asia's healing power was powerful enough to reattach his arm and fix the deep cut Issei gave him. When he had asked why she was out there, Asia said she had time off, but to him it seemed like she was running away from something. The moment Asia saw Issei, the knight could see the relief in her eyes. After finishing lunch, they both returned at the park and sat down a bench together, enjoying each other's company. There was no one at the park at this timing, so Issei didn't need to cover his headphones, as he still put them on to talk with Asia normally. "So Asia, that power of you." Issei decided to break the silence between them. Is it a sacred gear? He still didn't understand much about sacred gear, but he understood the only way for a normal human to have such amazing power like Asia was through sacred gear. "Yes, Issei-san, my sacred gear's name is Twilight Healing." She looked down at her hand. It had the power to cure the wound of every living being. Asia muttered the last part quietly, but the knight could still hear her very clearly. Then her face brightened up. "Issei-san, your skill is very amazing as well. I have seen some exorcists train with sword, but no one was as good as you are." "Thanks, I guess." Issei smiled while scratching the back of his head. He had to thank his grandfather for that, though. "But why did you say living being with such a sad face? You can cure angel, human, even devils like me, right? Then why you're so sad about that?" he asked. She put on a complicated expression at his question, then a sad face. Soon after, a single drop of tear fell from her eyes and more tears started flowing out from her eyes. She then got down and started to cry. Hey Asia, it's alright," Issei said quickly, feeling like slapping himself. "I'm so sorry for asking question like that." "And no, it's alright," Issei said. Asia wiped the tear of the corner of her eyes and then looked up at him and began to tell Issei about a story about the girl who was once called the Holy Maiden. In a certain region in Europe, there was a girl who was discarded by her parents. She was raised in a church nearby by a nun along with other orphans. The girl, who was a strong follower of the church, received a special power at the age of 8. She healed a wounded puppy, and a person from the Catholic Church witnessed it by chance. From there on, her life changed. The girl was taken to the main Catholic Church, and she was symbolized by many as a holy maiden because of her healing power. She used her power to heal many believers, and they were told it was a power of divine protection. Rumors brought rumors, and she was respected as a holy maiden. Even without her approval, she had no dissatisfaction for how she was treated. People from the church were kind, and she didn't hate healing people. She instead was happy that her power was of use. The girl was thankful to her power, which was bestowed to her by God. But she was a bit lonely. She didn't have any friends she could open up to. Everyone treated her nicely and was nice to her, but there were no one willing to become her friend. She understood why. She knew that they were looking at her power as something irregular. They didn't look at her as a human, but as a creature that could heal humans. But one day, it changed. By coincidence, there was a devil nearby and she healed it. A wounded devil. The girl couldn't ignore it. She thought that even if it was a devil, she had to heal it if it was injured. It was her kindness that made her take such an action. But that changed her life forever. One of the people from the church saw that incident and notified others of the church. The ministers of the church were shocked about it. A power that can heal devils. Something absurd like that cannot happen. The power of healing can only heal the followers of God. Yes, there were several people who had the power to heal, but the power to heal the devil was out of the question. The people of the church thought it was common sense that the power of healing doesn't work on fallen angels and devils. Apparently, a similar incident had happened in the past. The power to heal fallen angels and devils that were not protected by God. But that was feared as the power of a witch. So the people saw her as a heretic. Damn witch that heals devils. The girl who was respected as a holy maiden was then feared as a witch, and the Catholic Church abandoned her. She didn't have anywhere to go, and the organization of stray exorcists picked her up. In other words, she had to get divine protection from the fallen angels. But the girl never forgot to pray to God. She also never forgot to thank God. Even so, the girl was abandoned. God didn't save her. What shocked her the most was that there was not even a single person in the church that was willing to defend her. There was no one who cared about her. As Issei listened to the story, he couldn't help but gritted his hand in anger, so much that hit nails was cutting into his flesh and drawing blood from it. These people, how could they do it to a girl like Asia who had done nothing other than showing her kindness to a devil who was injured? He cursed God for this, the unfamiliar yet familiar anger that was swelling within him, like the feeling he had whenever he was about to fight. It was almost like he was more than ready to go to heaven and use the hard way to show God what he had done to an innocent girl like Asia. God adored his followers. Then he shouldn't create a sacred gear that could cure even devils in the first place. Wasn't he the one who bestowed sacred gears to the human? It's because I didn't pray enough. It's because I'm clumsy. I'm so stupid that I can't even eat a burger by myself. Asia wiped her eyes as more tears were falling down her eyes while laughing softly. This is also a trial that the Lord gave me. Since I'm a clumsy nun, the Lord gave me this trial. So I have to endure it. As if she was talking to herself, Asia looked up and stared at the sky above her. I'm sure I will make lots of friends one day. I have a dream. I want to go buy flowers with a friend, buying books and talk. Asia trailed off as she looked at Issei. Then she saw blood was dripping down from his hand and gasped in shock. Issei-san, your hands. Asia quickly took it and used her power. A green light appeared around it and the wound where his nails had caused slowly healed up. Asia, I will become your friend. No, we are already friends. Asia sat there looking puzzled. Why? It's not why. We talked right. We laughed together right. Then you and I are friends. A human, a devil, or God doesn't matter. We are friends. Is that a pact with a devil? It's not. Asia and I are going to become actual friends. We will put other things aside. We will talk when we want to. We will play when we want to. And yeah, I will also go shopping with you. Whether it's books or flowers, we will go shopping much as you want. Okay. Even Issei knew that he sucked at these kinds of things, but that was the real words that came from the bottom of his heart. He had never made friends with anyone before. Rainier and Rias were the one that came to him. But now, he would make it an exception. If that was what he could do to help this girl, then he would gladly befriend Asia and protect her with his life, just like he would with any of his friends, his master. But Asia put her hand on her mouth, and once again started to shed tears. Though, this time her tears didn't seem sad. San, I have no common sense. We could learn by going around the city. If you go around looking at different things, you would learn eventually. I can't speak Japanese. I also don't know about its culture. I will teach you. I will even make you speak using a proverb. Leave it to me, he said. I also don't know what to talk about with a friend. Did you know that I was once like you, a guy who didn't know how to talk to others and befriend them? Issei asked, and Asia gasped in shock. You were even better than me back then. You talked to me normally for a whole day, right? That was fine. We were already talking like friends. He asked with a smile. Asia, will you become my friend? She nodded her head furiously. Then, let's get along from now on, Asia. Asia's face then broke out in a beautiful smile and nodded her head. She was touched by his words. Everything was going to be all right now. She didn't care about that incident anymore, and she wouldn't care about how painful that past was. All she cared about was staying at Issei's side, forever. There you are, Asia. There was a voice. It's time for the ritual. Let's. Issei-kun. Issei sprung around than any eyes could follow when he heard that voice. Rainier-sama. Asia muttered in shock as seeing the young black-haired woman approaching them. Rainier-chan. But Issei immediately found Rainier wasn't the only one that was coming. Rainier-chan. Issei called out, but suddenly found himself taking a step back cautiously. His demonic Nadachi appeared within his hand in a blink of an eye when he realized that Rainier wasn't coming here alone. Flying a few feet above the ground were 3 more fallen angels. 2 of them were females, and the other appeared to be a man wearing a gentleman's suit. Issei, even with his eyes stayed on the fallen, could feel Asia shaking when she got to hide behind him and knew that she was afraid, not just at the other 3 fallen angels but devil with brown hair and black Nadachi. The fallen angel, who had the appearance of a young girl with blonde pigtails, said as she examined Issei closely, Rainier, he is the one nearly killed that exorcist, freed Zelzen. Her companions were a little taken apart by this and were a little wary at Issei, as they all seen what he did to Freed, with an unsheathed sword no less. Aiz-kun. Rainier called out softly to her best friend but quickly turned her attention to the girl that was hiding behind him. Asia, come here, it's time to go. She called out to the nun. The more mature woman of the group of fallen angel then flew down to the ground and touched her feet down next to Rainier, glaring dagger at Issei. Devil, give us the girl and we will allow you to leave here alive. She told Issei coldly, making Issei make a fearless smile, with his hand tightened around his sword, completely different from what Rainier remembered about him. Can you see that she don't want to? Issei asked, standing protectively in front of her. He then turned to his friend and asked with a worried tone, Rainier-chan, what is happening? Why are you with these guys? It was clear to him that Rainier's fellow fallen angels were no angel. All were glaring at him in absolute disgust, like he was but a mere ant underneath their feet. Don't talk to us like we're at the same level, filthy low-class devil. She stared at him as if she was looking at something very disgusting. Rainier-chan, don't tell me that you know this shit, Rainier. The younger female fallen angel laughed maniacally, making Rainier look down a little, trying to avoid both question from her comrade and friend. Should we kill him now and take the girl back? I want to see devil's blood so much. No, I don't want to go with you. I don't want to return to that church. I don't want to return to the people who kill other people. Also, you people did things to me. Issei cried out with disgust, fear in her voice. Please don't say that, Issei. Rainier spoke up with a concerned tone. Your sacred gear is essential for our plan. So please come back with me, alright? We are not going to hurt you. Rainier started to approach them. Issei immediately hid further behind Issei. Her body was shaking with fear. So, this is what you have been doing lately, Rainier-chan? Issei asked, looking at Issei before returning his eyes to the one he called friend, with a pained look in his eyes using an innocent girl. The black-haired fallen angel was a little taken aback by the look in his eyes, and tried her best to avoid it. You won't understand, she muttered before snapping her head up. Please, Issei-kun, this matter doesn't concern you. Please step aside and give us Issei. Well, make me, Issei muttered and hardened his gaze. At that instant, Issei knew that he would do everything in his power, whatever it takes to protect Issei, like what he promised to Issei, even if he had to go against the girl he called his friend. We're not like that stray exorcist, don't underestimate us. Donosik, the only man within the group of fallen angels, summoned a light spear into his hand. No, don't hurt him, Rainier cried out, but it was too late. Donosik already threw the spear at Issei, smirking at the thought of the spear piercing through his stomach. However, much to their shock, Issei crouched down low and used his free hand to push Issei onto his back, making her gasp out in surprise and wrapped her arms around his neck on pure instinct. When Issei was secured on his back, the knight merely raised his sword and blocked the incoming light spear like it was just a flying paper airplane, using the special trait of his Nadachi to send the force of the impact toward Dohensik, knocking him off the sky and down to the ground. Hang on, all right. Issei nodded her head furiously and tightened her arms around his neck. Issei then instantly turned on his heels and ran. Try to catch us if you can, Issei shouted out and launched through the air like a bullet, faster than any fallen angel's wings could bring them. In just a mere second he already disappeared from view without a single trait. Damn you, Mel was about to chase after him, but Rainier immediately stepped into her way, stopping her. What are you doing, Rainier? Don't, he is probably heading to his master, Rias Gremory. Rainier shook her head. We will get killed before we could get the girl. Let's return to our base for now. The other grunted in frustration but nonetheless listened to Rainier's words and took off onto the sky. Rainier turned her head around to give the spot where Issei was standing just a few seconds ago a final look. Issei, she whispered sadly, and quickly followed her comrades, returning to their hiding place. Line break. So, he isn't at school today? Rias Gremory asked while sipping on a hot cup of tea. All of her servants were present, save for Issei. Of course, that's strange, she muttered, knowing just how much attention Issei paid to schooling. Any ideas of where he is right now? While hanging out the leaflets, Akino spoke up from the counter while making cookies for Kaneko. My familiar saw a boy that looked like Issei-kun, wearing our school's uniform for boys, wandering around the 25 district. That is the area where Momo Mamazono-san's house locates. Rias nodded her head with a smile. Issei probably worries for her safety after what happened last night, so he was there to make sure that the stray exorcist wouldn't do anything funny to his client. I am not going to feel surprised if he decided to follow her to school as well, unnoticed of course, the crimson-haired devil said, and Akino giggled at that. Though, I am very surprised to see that he still doesn't realize that his client is a very popular girl among the teenagers. Tamen right or Pinky right? Rias nodded her head at Akino's question. That's why I pick Issei, a knight for Mamazono-san. She then turned to Kiba and Kaneko. No offense to you guys of course, but I think that a girl will like it more if she has someone earn the title of knight. Of course, but Kiba smiled and Kaneko didn't say anything and continued to eat the chocolate pancakes she brought with her to school. By the way, Butchu, shouldn't we do something about the stray exorcists and fallen angels residing in our town? Of course, Akino, Rias said. Her voice became calm. We can't let the human get killed or get into dangerous situations simply because they are making pacts with us like that. I already reported this to my brother, and as soon as... But before she could finish, the door of her clubroom suddenly busted open and Issei stopped himself in front of them, appearing with the blonde-haired nun they say last night on his back, much to their surprise. Eyes. Rias stood up from her seat in surprise. What happened? She asked, casting her eyes from the girl on his back and the sword he was holding in his hand. Issei didn't say anything at first. He only turned around and gently put Issei down to the lawn. The girl was a little green and dizzy, with her blonde hair messed up from traveling at high speed for the first time, but overall she looked alright. Rainier-chan, the fallen angels. They came to get Issei, Issei said, standing straight up. Her sacred gear is their goal, he said firmly before looking at Issei. Stay here, Issei. They are going to protect you, he told her with a small smile and then turned around to leave. What? Where are you going, Issei? Rias called out, stopping him. I'm going to that church to get some answers from Rainier-chan. His hand tightened around his Nadachi at the thought of Rainier. He wanted to have an answer for this and he was going to hear it from Rainier herself. No, Eyes, I can't allow you to do that. Rias shook her head and grabbed his shoulder to turn him around to face her. It's too dangerous. You'll have to go through a small army of stray exorcists and other fallen angels to get to that girl. You will definitely be killed if you go. You won't be able to come back to life anymore. Do you understand? Rias asked sternly, crossing her arms across her chest. Plus, you bringing Asia Argento here, not only she is a god's follower but she also belongs to the fallen angels, can seriously affect not only me but also the other members. You are a devil of the Gremory group. You need to be aware of that. Asia was a god's follower, but you. Rias widened her eyes in surprise at this. She was excluded because she used her power to cure a devil, just like us. Issei said, his tone softened a little, and from what Rainier was talking about, I don't think their plan involved her leader. They are doing this on their own. He then turned to Asia. Right, Asia? Why yes, I think Asia became a little uncomfortable when she became the center of all attention. They also said, my sacred gear is for their leader, Shemhaza-sama and Azazel-sama. Rias widened her eyes at the mention of two fallen angel leaders. But everything you said is the truth, Issei. That girl was still originally from God's side. Rias pointed at Asia. She is a person that we cannot ever coexist with. Even if she went with the fallen angels, it doesn't change the fact that she is still the enemy of us devils. Rias paused for a second before continuing, and what about that fallen eyes? What are you going to do after you get the answer you want from her? Even seriously think that you two can become friends again like before, when you two are two opposite beings? Issei was left speechless after that. Even though he didn't want to admit it, Rias was right. He could protect Asia here and he could get the answer he wanted from Rainier later if he tried to, but what was going to happen after that? What would turn out between him and Rainier? Would they have to hate each other simply because she was a fallen angel while he was a devil? If only that day Rainier didn't accidentally kill Issei and Rias didn't turn him into a devil to save his life. That's it, Issei thought when that idea suddenly came up in his mind. It could work. Issei didn't know if he would manage to do it, but it wasn't impossible. If that was the only way that would prevent him from putting his sword at Rainier's throat. I know that friendship is a wonderful thing to you, eyes, Rias said. Her tone became soft. I think it's amazing if you can say that face to face to me like this, letting me see just how much you changed after becoming a devil. But that is different than what we are talking about now. The relationship between a devil and a fallen angel is not as simple as you think. The two sides have been glaring at each other for hundreds and thousands of years. If you show them a single gap of weakness, they will come and kill us. They are our enemy. She shook her head. Instead of replying to Rias, Issei kneeled down and put a hand on Asia's shoulder. Asia, can you wait here? The others looked at him shocked, realizing that he still hadn't changed his mind. Why yes, Issei-san. The girl nodded her head. But, please, promise me you will return. She put her hands together. I will. Issei rubbed her head before looking at Kiba. Oi Kiba, keep her safe? Okay. Oh yeah. I guess. I will. The charming prince of Kyo Academy casted his eyes between Issei and Rias while smiling nervously. See ya, but you. Rias tried to grab him, but Issei already rushed out of the clubroom and disappeared. That boy. Seriously, Rias growled before releasing a heavy sigh. I guess it can't be helped then. She then turned to Asia. Your name is Asia Argento, right? Asia nodded her head nervously but then widened her eyes when Rias kneeled down in front of her with a soft smile on her face. Say, can I have a few words with you before we all go to help him? Line break. It didn't take him long to get to his destination, the abandoned church he brought Asia to a few days ago. Even from here, he could still feel an ugly feeling coming from the church, telling him to stay away from it as far as possible. He was in the enemy's territory. He knew that he would be weakened as soon as he stepped into that place because he was a newborn devil, but he wasn't going to turn around now. He wasn't going to leave that place without taking Rainier with him after he got the answer he wanted, and there was no one going to stand on his way. Not Fried, not his fellow stray exorcists, not the other fallens, and not even his master and his friend. Because after all, Rainier was his friend too. Friendship was a very important thing to Issei. To him, friends were as important as family's members. The exorcists that were currently residing within the abandoned church of Kyo Town would never know what was going to hit them like a powerful storm. Issei kicked the door open and charged in before any exorcists could acknowledge what was happening. He took down the nearest exorcists with a deep gash on their chest. His sword moved in the air faster than their eyes could follow. Issei greeted the large group of exorcists with a small smirk, before grabbing the weapon of the man he had just cut down, a katana. Nice sword, I think I will keep this. Saying that, the knight could feel a heavy pressure on his shoulders. It must be the holy aura within the place, or at least what was still remaining. However, Issei wasn't going to let anything stop him from getting to Rainier. There was a long moment of silence between him and the group of exorcists, but as soon as Issei took the first step toward them, they immediately reached for their weapons and attacked the night devil at the same time. Wave after wave of bullets were fired at Issei, but with the speed of a knight, he was way faster than them. Charging forward and raised his swords to block the bullets coming at him, or simply let them pass over his body harmlessly, it didn't take him long to reach the first group of stray exorcists. A combination between dual-wielding style and undrawn sword style was extremely deadly, as he could attack his enemies and defend himself, blocking and striking at the same time. The more exorcists fell down to the ground, the faster and stronger his strikes became. He knew that he was an ambidexter, but Issei never knew that he could do this. It didn't take it long for him to realize his grandfather had also taught him how to fight with two swords at the same time. All the while, Issei let his body guide him, becoming more and more familiar with the new way of fighting as he created a bloodbath through the lines of exorcists, taking down anyone that tried to approach him or stand in his way. As he twisted his body around with his arms outstretched, sending 5 exorcists to the ground with a deep gash on their chest, his eyes suddenly caught the familiar glow of a light spear coming from above. The knight wasted no time to stop himself from moving forward and jumped out of the way to dodge the incoming spear. It was Do-en-Sik. "You damn devil." The man glared at Issei murderously and raised his hand to summon another light spear. "Who do you think you?" But before he could finish, a chair was thrown at him and smashed into his head with such force that it broke and knocked him away several feet in the air. There was only one person, or devil, Issei knew could pack a strength like that. Kaneko-chan. He turned his head around and saw her, Kaneko Taoju, waving her hand to him with the same blank expression on her face. "Hello, Issei-senpai," she said with a monotone before flicking an exorcist away with her finger. "We're here to help." Issei immediately got his answer when the rest of the occult research club made themselves known to him and the stray exorcists. Kiba appeared with a sword in his hand and immediately went to aid Issei, defeating several enemies that tried to sneak attack Issei from behind in just a second or two with the speed equal a knight's speed. "Promotion?" Issei asked when Kiba appeared next to him. "Yep, but you acknowledges this place enemy's territory, so like a chess game I can promote myself to a knight." Kiba nodded with a smile. "You're going to cause me so much trouble after this, Eyes." The knight turned his head around and widened his eyes when he saw Rias and Akino walked into the church with a smile on their face. "Ara, quite a party you have here, Eyes." Akino giggled slyly once again. "I'm turned on by your handiwork." "But you, everyone." The brown-haired boy smiled and bowed his head to his master as low as he could. "Thank you." He couldn't ask anything more from his wonderful comrades. "You're welcome, my adorable knight," Rias giggled before saying, "By the way, I would like to introduce you to my new bishop." Issei gasped in shock when Asia stepped out from behind Rias. "Hello, Issei-san." She greeted him softly. "Asia ... you ... She said she only wanted to be with you forever, so I asked her if she wanted to become a devil and join my peerage." Rias put a hand on Asia's shoulder. She said yes, and I made her my bishop. "Really?" Issei asked in surprise. "Asia ... Are you really okay with this?" "Yes, Issei-san." She put her hands together, smiling softly. "As long as I can be with you and stay at your side, I don't care if I become a devil," she said. "I see." Issei nodded his head with a smile. "Then, welcome to the team, Asia." The former nun nodded her head with a smile. "We will have our celebration later, Eyes." Rias spoke up. "Leave this place to us. You go get that Rainer girl." The knight nodded his head and ran further into the building. There, he found Rainer, sitting alone on a chair staring at the statue of Jesus. "I know you will come, Issei-kun," the fallen angel said with a soft smile. "Are you going to kill me now?" "To protect that girl, Asia-chan," she asked quietly, turning around to look at him. Issei gasped in shock when he saw bruises and cuts on her face. "Rainer-chan, what happened?" he asked worriedly and kneeled down beside his friend. "The others aren't too happy about you and me being friends. So, you know." She laughed softly and Issei gritted his teeth in anger. "I deserve far worse than this, after everything I did to you and about to do to Asia-chan." "You didn't do anything to me, Rainer-chan. If anything, you actually gave me a new life ... with a hard way, of course." They both laughed softly at that. "Rainer-chan, may I ask you something?" "Yeah. Why did you fall?" "Surely you're an angel from the beginning, right?" "I fell shortly after Azazel-sama fell, Issei-kun." She turned to look at him. "You know, around that time there was a large amount of angels decided to follow Azazel-sama, as we both didn't quite agree with the way God was doing, and Azazel-sama was one of the top angel of heaven. I was one of angel that decided to follow the first fallen, and before I knew it, my wings had already turned black." Rainer said softly. "I fell, just like that." "I see. Asia-chan's power is very unique, Eyes-kun, as it can cure human, devil, angel, or any living beings in this world. A power like that can help me heal the other fallen angels, and could be of help to the great Azazel-sama and Shemhaze-sama." She then paused for a second before saying, "Did you know, Issei-kun, if you extract sacred gears from their holder, it will also kill them as well?" "But you didn't do." But Issei stopped when he saw a teleportation magic circle appeared on the floor not too far from them. At first, he thought it was Rias and the other, but when he saw the magic circle glowing blue instead of crimson, bearing the unfamiliar symbol, Issei knew that it was someone else. The first who appeared was a young bespectacled woman in her late teens with a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut, and violet eyes. She also dressed in a Kyo Academy girls' school uniform. She was Sona Shitori, or Sona Citri, the student council's president and the heiress of Citri clan. The second was also a young bespectacled woman with long straight black hair that extended all the way down to her knees, with split bangs and heterochromic eyes, with a violet left eye and a light brown right eye. In addition to wearing the Kyo Academy girls' school uniform, she also wore blue, semi-rimmed glasses with square lenses. This was Tsubaki Shira, the vice president of the student council, and from what he heard, like Akino to Rias, Tsubaki was Sona's queen. And the last was the least person, or devil, Issei would hope to appear at this place. One of the pervert duo, who had become Sona's pawn. "Matsuda, Eyes!" Matsuda cried out in surprise and pointed his hand at Issei. "What are you doing here?" His eyes then turned to Rainer. Issei. He was about to run at her, but Sona stopped him before he could do so. Come, Matsuda-kun, Sona said shortly before looking at Issei, greeting, Hayato-kun. She greeted him politely and Tsubaki bowed her head a little. Sona's violent eyes then glanced down to his blood-filled swords. I see that you and Rias acted faster than us. Sona-san, what are you doing here? Issei asked cautionally. As you are already aware, that fallen angel tried to kill Matsuda-kun here, but she killed him instead, so wasn't her fault. Issei shook his head, cut in her words. Really? As far as I know, she went against her leader's words and decided to kill Matsuda-kun on her own accord, Sona said emotionlessly, and she also held a lot of illegal acts with 3 other fallen angels and a large group of stray exorcists in this town. I know about that, but why are you here? We are here to eliminate the fallen angels and the stray exorcists from this town, Tsubaki spoke up, including that fallen behind you, so please step aside and let us do our job. Issei couldn't help but growl quietly at that. Not going to happen, Sona. Fortunately for him, Rias stepped in and said loudly, with the others following closely behind her. Matsuda gasped at the sight of the most beautiful girls of Kyo Academy, while Rainier could only look at them in fear, because she could see the corpses of her comrades the moment they opened those doors. Rainier-sama, Asia cried out in shock when she saw the state Rainier's face was in and immediately rushed to her side to heal her. What happened to you? Asia-chan. The black-haired fallen angel smiled softly as the pain on her face slowly disappeared by the healing power of Asia. Thank you, she said gratefully after her face was fully healed. Rias, I see that you got for yourself a new servant again. Sona sighed while looking at her rival. It's good to see you too, Sona, Rias said, smiling. You came here to eliminate the fallen angels and stray exorcists, didn't you? Yes, and my sister already gave me the permission to do so. Well, too bad for you though, I already took care of most of them, save for this girl. Rias pointed to Rainier. I know, Rias. That's the reason why I am telling your knight to step out of the way so I can finish the job. I would like to see you try. Issei stepped forward, but Rias held her arm out to stop him. Let me handle this, Eyes, Rias said, smiling to him before returning her attention to Sona. You see, Sona, if you kill this girl, my knight isn't going to feel happy about it. Also, you should know about me and my family better than anyone else here. We only wish the best for our servants. Your point? My point is, if I make her my servant, will you spare her life? Issei and Rainier gasped in shock at this, but no one more than Issei. After all, Issei came here to see if he could convince Rainier into becoming a devil, reincarnated into Rias' servant to be specific. If he couldn't become coexist with Rainier because they were two different beings, a fallen angel and a devil, then maybe they could live with each other in peace if both of them were the same kind. There was no way Issei could become a fallen angel, but through the evil peace system, Rainier could become a devil just like him. Issei could only look at Rias in shock. His eyes widened even further when she turned around and winked meaningfully at him. So, she knew about his intention, as expected from his wonderful master. I see. Sona nodded her head. Wait a second, Rias-sama, you can't seriously think that. But a crimson aura suddenly flared around Rias, effectively shutting Matsuda's mouth. No offense to your servant, but Sona, any girls will want to give this pervert guy the most painful death. I must agree to that. Sona sighed before nodding her head, much to Matsuda's shock. Tsubaki, it's time for us to leave. Sona's queen nodded her head before stepping back to prepare the magic circle for them. I will leave the rest to you, Rias. Remember to keep your words. You don't have to remind me. You know with that. Rias and the other waited until Sona and her two servants to completely disappear before turning to her head to Rainier. Now, you already heard it all, Rainier. What's your opinion in this matter? Line break. 3 days later. In the end, Rainier agreed to become Rias' servant, and the ritual only took Rias a single pawn to reincarnate her into a devil. It wasn't like she had any choice in this matter, either becoming a member of Rias' peerage or getting a quick death from Sona Citri, killed like her comrades when they decided to go against the stronger devils. Do you have any regret? No. Sure, I don't like it, but if this is the only way, then I would gladly accept it, was what she answered him after Rias reincarnated her into a devil. From what he heard from Asia, Rainier was the only one that treated her nicely while she was still in that church, even stood up to protect her against Fried, who sneaked away during the Gremory's attack, and some other exorcists when they were about to hit her. Mostly it was the reason why Rainier and Asia could quickly become close with each other the past 3 days, forming a sisterly bond between them. Rias, Kiba and Kaneko were perfectly fine with Rainier, but Issei could see that Akino didn't appear to like Rainier one bit, most of the time even outright ignored the fallen angel. Rainier was enrolled into his class once again, much to Matsuda's horror, but unlike the last time with the name of Amano Yuma, this time she went with her real name, Rainier, and quickly earned the affection of their classmates and other students thanks to her sweet nature and beauty. Asia was also put into his class, and it didn't take her more than a day to be well known by the boys as a foreign beauty with blonde hair. It seemed life had returned to normal to Issei, as normal as it could. When you want to say thank you, you do this. Issei couldn't help but smile at the sight of Rainier teaching Asia sign language. As the two of them were in the same class as Issei, one of the places that he couldn't put his magical headphones on, they would have to learn a different way to communicate normally with him. Since Rainier already grabbed the basic, she was teaching everything she learned from Issei to Asia, who was very eager to learn such interesting way of communicating. I has been wondering, where did you get that sword? Rias called out to him and earned his attention, pointing her hand to Issei's new sword that was resting on his lap. He already thought about this last night because sooner or later Rias would ask him about how it. The new weapon was noticeably slightly longer than the one Rias had given him, but he could tell it was a very normal one because he couldn't feel any kind of energy coming from it. I got it from one of the stray exorcists. Didn't know I can dual wield until I try it out, he replied with a smile. I see. Rias nodded. You should tell me you know. I can get you a better one than that. Don't worry about you, I'm kinda like it. Issei shrugged with a smile. Rias smiled at him before standing up. Alright, since everyone is here, shall we start the party? Saying that, Rias clicked her fingers, making a big cake appear on the table. It might be good sometimes to gather in the morning to do these kinds of things, right? Since we got new members, I made some cake, so let's eat it together. She said it shyly. Issei and the other couldn't help but smile at that. His life sure changed a lot. From a deaf boy who got problem with social, now he became the only knight of Rias Gremory. He got his sense of hearing back. He now had a lot of friends that he could call his family. He could also move at super speed, at his best even faster than the speed of sound, and could make sharp and clean cuts with an undrawn sword. It sounded a little crazy, but it was his life now. Hey, Jai-chan is going to visit us. Issei cried out in shock but immediately realized that he just made a huge mistake. As his mother dropped the dish she was holding and the newspaper in his father's hands was blown away by the wind. Behind them, Asia and Rainer waved their hands and shook their head at him stimulatingly, telling Issei that he just did something he shouldn't be able to do again. With a sigh, Rainer raised her hands and wiped out the recent memories within Issei's parent head. Lately, Issei had gotten used to speaking once again and spoke up a lot more than usual, even without his magical headphones on. This was the 5th time in just 2 days he found himself reply to his parent with words, not sign language, and every time Rainer had to erase the memory with her magic, saving him from all the troubles he would have to face if his parent knew he could suddenly speak like that. Let your normal life flow normally, was what Rias told him to do. With her negotiation skill and the help of a simple spell, Rias managed to convince Issei's parent into accepting both Asia and Rainer into their house as their daughters. The two were now living with Issei, residing in the room next to Issei's room that used to be a guest room, but with the motherly hands on his mother, it soon became a livable room for girls. His parent loved him very much, but they always wanted to know what it feels like to have daughters and came to love both Rainer and Asia very much, since the two were very nice and cared deeply for their son, not to mention they always acted like two proper daughters. Seeing them like this also warmed Issei's heart a lot. His parents sacrificed a lot for him, so they deserved happiness more than anyone in this world. Living with him would also help Asia get familiar with the Japanese culture and lifestyle, something that both Issei and Rainer would like to help her. When Rias asked them who did you want to live with the most within our club members, they did say eyes without a second thought. And since Rainer, now a half-devil and half-fallen angel, could no longer return to her house within fallen angel's territory in the underworld, letting her live with him like this was the best thing he could do for Rainer. Rias already asked her brother to send Azazel, the leader of Fallen Angel, a message about Rainer's case, and Issei didn't know how the man would react when he found out that one of his most loyal minions decided to change side. Akasama, lets me help you. Asia immediately came over to help a confused Midori pick up the pieces of the broken dishes, as carefully as she could so she wouldn't accidentally cutting herself. Oh, thank you, Asia-chan. Issei's mother smiled at Asia, but still a little confused about what just happened. Eyes Rainer poked him on his shoulder to gain his attention. Your grandfather's the one who taught you swordsmanship, right? She asked through the use of sign language, and Issei nodded his head in reply. He must be really, really strong. More like a weird old geezer, Issei told her, and started telling Rainer his thoughts about his grandfather through sign language. Since she was just a new learning in Issei's way of communicating, there were many signs she couldn't understand, but Rainer still managed to grab the basic of what he wanted to tell her. The reason why he taught me how to fight was still unclear though. Issei ended his story with those words, and he also said I shouldn't use a real blade unless I really want to kill someone. His style of swordsmanship allowed him to fight without removing the scabbard, but the reason why he wasn't allowed to use the real blade was still unclear. His grandfather could be an old geezer, but when he told Issei to do that, he texted him with some serious words, no playful face, so Issei trusted him. I see. Rainer smiled with a nod of her head, but have you ever tried to fight with a real sword before? The knight shook his head. Oh. He didn't even know that he was ambidextrous, getting to the fact that he could fight with two swords at once. That aside, he was starting to enjoy the way his new life was turning out. Line break. Sparring with Kiba was one of many activities Issei had come to enjoy lately in the early morning before going to school. Thanks to his ability, Kiba was able to recreate his weapons the moment Issei broke it with a powerful strike or slash. Dueling with Issei was getting harder and harder for the handsome pawn, as the more he fought the darker his personality became, almost like a sadistic Akino but worse in many ways. At first they all thought it was only when he was facing against an enemies, but now Kiba could tell that whenever Issei picked up his swords, he became somewhat bloodthirsty and enjoyed the feeling of his weapon going through the fleshes of his opponent, as well as the smell of blood. It was scary, seeing how he was a kind and really gentle high school student. At least Issei was still able to control himself, since he heard the moment the knight decided to pull the sword out of its sheath, it was the moment he really wanted to kill his enemies. Calm down, eyes, Kun, Kiba said with a nervous smile as he was pushed back by Issei's violent strike. But he doubted Issei could hear him because currently he wasn't having his headphones with him. Before the spar started, Kiba asked Issei if he could fight without having his headphones with him, so the knight decided to give it a try and put the magical artifacts away. And the fight turned out to be just like how Kiba Yudo predicted. Issei was able to avoid almost every attacks from him, without the need to use one of the swords to block, even if most of them was super fast. In a one-on-one battle, Issei's habit of covering his surrounding could become extremely useful for his fighting style, but the ears were also very important if Issei fought against multi-opponents at once. He was forced to create a massive broadsword in order to block Issei's swords which came at him at once. He could feel his hands shaking by the force of his strike. He gritted his teeth as he was forced back slightly. The knight cried out and slashed his sword down, breaking the broadsword Kiba was holding in the process. The moment the tips of his swords hit the ground, Issei released them and twisted his body around to deliver a cut to a broken piece of Kiba's sword, sending it to the pawn's face. Kiba gritted his teeth and moved his head out of the way, and saw the way the piece cut a few strands of his front bangs as it flew past him. Before the charming prince of Kyo Academy could react, Issei grabbed his sword from the ground and shot forward, knocking the forming two-edged sword in Kiba's hand away and put one of his sword at the back of his neck and the other pointing at his heart. "All right, I yield," Kiba said with a small smile and held both of his hands up. He lost, fair and square. A smile then appeared in Issei's face as he dropped one of his swords and reached his hands into his pocket for his headphones. "That was amazing, Eyes-kun," Kiba said after the headphones were activated. "You're really getting stronger." "Am I?" Issei asked. Looking at his hands, "I do feel like I can do just more than that though." He wasn't sure, but the feeling he had while sparring with Kiba wasn't something he could not notice. It was a familiar, yet somewhat strange feeling. It let him know that he could do more, guiding his instinct through each attack he made. Issei didn't know that he could fight that hard. It was like his ability had boosted greatly in the past few days. "But still, you need to keep your head cool as well, Eyes-kun," Kiba said. "I lost control again, didn't I?" he asked with a bit of bitter in his tone. "A good yoga lesson will be very useful," Kiba advised with a smile, "since I doubt everyone, other than Akino-senpai, would enjoy a sadistic Eyes-kun." They both laughed softly at that. "I will keep that in mind." Issei nodded his head. "What time is it?" "It's almost time for school though," Kiba said after checking the clock on his phone's screen. "We should head there soon." "You go first. I need to grab Asia and Rainier-chan as well." And with that, the two swordsmen separated, ending their usual morning routine. Line break. "It's a good weather today. Ai-san, we are playing softball for physical education today. It's my first time, so I'm excited." Asia was walking towards the school happily with Issei and Rainier, all dressed in their respective school uniform. She was trying to talk to Issei, completely forgot that he couldn't hear what she was saying. So, he kept on walking without acknowledging her, looking around to make sure that no motorbike would suddenly appear and crash into him. It used to be his worst fear during the first few months trying to get used to his new condition. "The students who goes to the same school as us are looking at us with intense eyes." "Asia-chan," Rainier decided to speak up with a gentle smile. "Eyes-kun cannot hear what you're saying, remember." "Oh." Asia nodded her head before making a down expression. "I forgot." She just recently became Issei's friends, and since most of their conversation together in the past was with him wearing his headphones, she was still getting used to it. "Don't worry, I don't think he will get angry at you." Rainier smiled. While the trio was walking toward the academy's gate, the students couldn't help but whisper to each other. "Why is Asia-san walking from the same direction as Issei-kun?" said the girls. "Impossible. What's going on? It must be some kind of mistake, not just Rias-sama, but even Asia-san." "And who is that beauty walking next to them?" cried the males angrily. Still, it wasn't like he could hear anything and could only look around in curiosity, since everyone was sneaking glance at him and all. "Are they talking about us?" Issei turned to Rainier and asked. "Why yes, they are, Issei-kun." Rainier nodded with a smile. He, the timid and shy student and a rather famous boy at Kyo Academy, who spent his time around school and classes alone, was now suddenly getting along with the school idols very well. The girls really loved and cared for Issei. Hayao wasn't an uncommon knowledge around the schoolyard, but in befriended many beautiful ladies around the school was actually something new for them. From other people's view, it was an unbelievable situation, mostly for the other male students. His sudden friendliness with them was acknowledged in many ways. There were some students who confessed to Asia because they thought something like, "If Hayao can, so can I." But they were rejected immediately by the former nun. "By the way, Asia-chan," Rainier glanced at the movement of Issei's hands and translated it to the blonde, "are there any problems at school? Are you getting along with other girls?" Those were the things he most concerned about. A former sister who had just transferred to their school, whose former lifestyle was far different from their must, felt lost in school life. At times like that, Issei thought he would definitely help her. However, what's most important was for her to be supported by other girls. Rainier had started to come into Kyo Academy again, so he could feel a little less worried than before, as Rainier would surely take good care of Asia. However, just the girls from the Occult Research Club weren't enough. He thought Asia would need to interact more with the other classmates of their class as well. He doubted she was getting bullied for not being used to this lifestyle, but Issei couldn't stop himself from being worried about it. Nothing like that was happening within his sight, but she might be bullied when he was not there. Then, Asia made a smile which came from the bottom of her heart, which then rejected his concern about her. Everyone is very kind towards me. Rainer translated it to them. They are teaching me a lot of things so I would get familiar with Japan. I also made lots of friends. I was also invited to go shopping with them. That was really good to know. It seemed like her relationship with the other classmates was going very well, so one of his concerns was gone. Now with the problem of Asia's school life settled, the remaining problem was brought out the moment they stepped into class. Asia-chan. Good morning. Good morning, Asia-san. Your blonde hair is shining today as well. The bald-headed guy Matsuda and the guy wearing glasses Madohama approaches Asia while greeting her cheerfully. Though, the moment Matsuda saw Rainer, he paled greatly and backed off. Since the news about Rainer coming back to Kyo Academy, this time using her real name Rainer, had been already given to Sona Citri from his master, the student council's president must have told her servants, especially Matsuda, about it. Issei hoped that Sona stated it to the pervert baldy Matsuda very clear that he wasn't allowed to act or say anything like he already knew about Rainer, since the fallen angel had wiped the memories about her from everyone at school, sans the supernatural groups. Oi, what the hell is wrong with you? Madohama asked in confusion, while Rainer was giving him the evil eyes, as if she was daring him to spill a word. Issei breathed out a long breath he didn't know he had been holding. With this, his last concern about Asia's well-being disappeared. He was afraid that those two perverts would try to do something bad to Asia, since she was pretty naive and had a great trust in everyone, including the ones who loved to sneak into the girls' changing rooms. Having Rainer around was sure a great idea. Though, unlike Asia, Rainer couldn't get along with everyone that well. The problem was Akino, and for some reason he couldn't help but feel that she didn't like Rainer that much. Sure, she was formerly a fallen angel, their enemy, but Rias, Kiba, and Kaneko didn't have any problem with it. Akino didn't show her dislike very often, but she outright ignored Rainer whenever she was present or was saying something. Maybe he should talk with Rias about this, in case she hadn't noticed it yet, which he doubted she had not. Line break. Let's. Henshin was the first thing Issei heard when he entered Momo Mamazono's apartment. She was standing in the middle of the room, already in her pajama and making a strange pose with that red gauntlet, sacred gear on her arm. It reminded him of a superhero's pose, though. Oh, Issei-kun. She made a happy smile after seeing him appear in her room through teleportation magic circle. Good evening, Momo-san. Issei greeted her before asking with an amused smile, what are you doing? A pose, of course, she admitted without embarrassment, which surprised him. Someone her age would probably got embarrassed if they were caught doing a superhero pose like that. Would you like me to do it again? I think I will pass. Issei chuckled while scratching the back of his head, making Momo pout and make her sacred gear disappear. So Momo-san, what is your request tonight? Well, my coworker at at my workplace gave me the record of this movie. Momo opened her bag and pulled out a DVD disc. It's a romantic movie, so I'm looking a decent guy that can watch it with me. She smiled and walked close to him. So, you want me to watch it with you? Issei asked, pointing at himself. Momo nodded her head while grinning mischievously. That's it. That's it, easy money, right? Momo asked and pushed him down to the long in front of her flat-screen TV. The last time he was here, that long wasn't there, so she must have set it up for tonight. It didn't take her long to turn the DVD on and sat down next to Issei. He rarely watched movies because of his deafness. He couldn't hear what the actors were saying, so he mostly stuck to films with subscribe. But it wasn't as thrill as watching movie with amazing sound, music. ect. As the film started playing, much to his surprise, Momo snuck closer to him and wrapped her arms around his arm, hugging herself close to him. Issei couldn't help but blush a little at the contact. Since Momo's bust size wasn't something should be underestimated, he could feel them touching against his arm very clearly. This movie was going to last for more than 2 hours, so he doubted he could return home before Asia and Rainer go to sleep. Later that night, just like he thought, everyone went to sleep the moment he was home. Momo also fell asleep during the last minutes of the movies, so he had to put her to bed and made sure she was comfortable before heading home, not forgetting to lock the door as well as close the window after leaving through her balcony. Easy money, just like she said. He had gotten many requests for himself lately, but Momo Mamazono was always his most favorite customer. Her requests were always circling around taking care of her house, or even herself. It could get weird sometime, but while fulfilling her wishes he could also talk with Momo about many things, including his own life and what happened that day. She was now involved with the supernatural worlds, not just because of her connection with him but also her sacred gear as well, so he didn't think keeping secret to Momo was that important anymore. Taking off his shoes, before Issei could start wondering if he should take a bath at this timing or not, the floor of his room glowed. Then, the light forming into a circular shape and a familiar symbol appeared on it. It was the mark of their group, the mark of Gremory household. The magic circle then made a big glow that lit up the whole room before a person appeared from it, with crimson hair flowing gently in the air. Bachu, the one that appeared from the magic circle, was none other than Rias Gremory, who seemed to have the face of those cornered. Rias approached Issei as soon as she saw her night before saying something so shocking thing to him. Make love to me. Excuse me. Rias then said it again to make sure he heard it since Issei had a dumbfounded look. I want you to take my virginity. Immediately. Maybe he should ask Aquino to send his headphones to the underworld so the designer could give it a careful check, because he believed that it wasn't working as it should be. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.